Chapter 7:17. When the great elder saw Yi Tianyun's power, he did not think that it was very powerful. He felt that Yi Tianyun's power was not bad, but not at a level that could defy the natural order. All of this power was under his control. It did not exceed his expectations. Then, he took out a huge axe. Apart from the dense divine marks on it, there was also a perfect curve that outlined the shape of a full moon. There were spots of starlight carved on it, as if a starry sky had been carved on the axe. Everyone could feel the vast power of the stars in it. They felt how small they were. The astral divine axe. The great elder is finally going to use it. It's been a long time since I've seen him use it. Every time he takes it out, he can kill all his enemies. Yes, I've seen the great elder use it before. With one swing of the axe, an entire mountain was split in two. There was even a gap of 1,000 meters. It's scary just thinking about it. This kid is very strong. But the great elder is even stronger. Even if they are a bit lacking in character, I have to say that they are very strong. If our Fengtian divine nation lacks them, how will we defend against our enemies? The disciples stared at the great elder's astral divine axe, and then at the sword in Yi Tianyun's hand. The two were not on the same level. Although they were both weapons, it was clear that the astral divine axe was more powerful. Yi Tianyun could also see this. From the materials used, the astral divine axe was more powerful. Although the two were of the same grade, both were low-grade divine weapons, the astral divine axe was superior to the evil spirit divine sword in all aspects. However, this was based on the individual power. If it was combined with a set of equipment, it would be able to crush everything. The power of the divine king's bloodline? Yi Tianyun asked curiously. Oh, then show it to me. Let me see how strong the divine king's bloodline that you all hold in such high regard is. The Fengtian divine nation was very strict with regards to bloodlines. They wanted their descendants to inherit more of the bloodline. However, as they continued to reproduce, the bloodline would definitely be diluted. This was unavoidable. The only thing they could do was to slow down the dilution. That was why they allowed the descendants to marry other members of the clan. Unless the original bloodline was very diluted, they would not allow the people of the clan to marry each other. Child, don't wait for him to release his bloodline, hurry up and stop him. Yi Yuanlong hastily reminded. Don't worry, Grandpa. As long as it's not the king of the heavens himself, no bloodline will matter to me. Yi Tianyun said calmly. I just want to see for myself how powerful the bloodline that you all praise so highly is. Arrogance and ignorance. Everyone came to this conclusion, feeling that Yi Tianyun was too arrogant. He felt that he was invincible. He had just defeated the third elder, and he thought that he could look down on everyone else. This kid is too arrogant. Does he really think he can defeat the first elder just because he defeated the third elder? I dare say that this kid will definitely regret it later. He actually looked down on our bloodline. He is too young, not calm enough, and ignorant about bloodlines. We have the bloodline of the King of the Heavens. They had originally maintained a neutral stance. After all, the first elder's actions were indeed disgusting. However, now they were all biased towards the first elder. Yi Tianyun's tone clearly showed that he looked down on the bloodline of the King of the Heavens. How could they not be angry? Kid, I have to say that you are quite capable. However, if I give you more time, I won't be able to defeat you. However, right now, the world is not yours yet. The first elder had already finished accumulating his power. He stretched out his hand and smashed it forward. With a dong sound, the stars on the astral divine axe lit up one by one. With each star lit up, the power of the axe increased significantly. After 7 stars were lit up, the astral divine axe became extremely dazzling. It was as if he was not holding an axe in his hand, but a dazzling star. Following that, a terrifying and majestic power gushed out of his body. In an instant, it transformed into a vast galaxy behind him. Astral power. The first elder's aura exploded. The astral power in the sky shrouded him rapidly, increasing his strength crazily. The power of the bloodline in his body surged crazily. Relying on the power of the bloodline, he could borrow the power of the vast galaxy. This was the power of the King of the Heavens bloodline. The King of the Heavens not only focused on soul cultivation, but also on the connection with the stars. Once he used the power of the stars, his strength would be greatly enhanced. The evil spirit bloodline could greatly enhance one's strength from within. However, the first elder borrowed the power of the heavens and earth, and even the power of the stars. He borrowed the power of the stars. The name of the King of the Heavens was not just for show. He really sealed the sky and then turned it into his own. As long as one had the bloodline of the King of the Heavens, he would be able to use the power of the stars under the starry sky. This was the greatest asset of the Feng Tian divine kingdom. The power of the stars was connected to the three realms. Even if it was not in the heavenly realm, its power was still astonishing. Under the crazy blessing of the power of the stars, the first elder's battle prowess increased crazily. In an instant, his battle prowess had increased to more than 4 to 5 billion, and it was still increasing crazily. This power was definitely far beyond the level of the peak Spirit King stage, even reaching the strength of the third layer of the Saint King stage. He didn't expect that with the power of the stars, he would be able to unleash so much power. Interesting, no wonder the King of the Heavens praises it so much. As expected of the power of the King of the Heavens, the power to control the whole world. Tianyun smiled slightly, but he didn't think much of it. It was undeniable that this power was very strong, but it was still too ordinary for him. However, he did not underestimate this power. If his bloodline was a little purer, and his cultivation was a little stronger, he would definitely be able to attract even stronger star energy. It would not be a problem for him to skip 4 or 5 levels. It's over. Yuanlong's face sank. The first elder had released his full power, and even if he tried to stop him, he wouldn't be able to stop it. Once the first elder used his full power, the result would be the death of his opponent. Jiao Lingyi's heart almost jumped out of her throat. Shi Shuyun gently patted her little hand and said with a faint smile, "Trust Tianyun," and Jiao Lingyi nodded, but it didn't mean that she was really relieved. "Boy, I wonder if you can hold on?" Sua Kaifeng's eyes flickered. Compared to the first elder, he was more optimistic about Tianyun. If Tianyun's potential exceeded the first elder's, then everything would be different. Tianyun walked towards the first elder step by step. He casually held the evil spirit divine sword in his hand and said indifferently, "Is this your strength? Can you be stronger?" Chapter 7:18. Young man, the newborn calf is not afraid of the tiger. I admire you for having the courage to say such words. But it's a pity that the duel is about to end. This set of equipment is mine. I hope that in your next life, you will learn to keep a low profile. Don't be so arrogant. The great elder did not show any mercy. He aimed at Tianyun and chopped down with his axe. A beam of starlight fell from the sky. The great elder turned into a star and fell down. It was so fast that most of the practitioners could not see it. They could only see a long beam of light. Like a tiger hunting a rabbit, he used all his strength. The great elder did not relax at all. He used all his strength. Even though Tianyun's cultivation was much weaker than his, he still used all his strength to attack. This was his personality. No matter who his opponent was, he would not show any mercy. He felt that Tianyun's strength was not weak, but in order to avoid any problems, he had to use all his strength. Under this terrifying power, the ground trembled. Even the sturdy palace was shaking. Fortunately, the strengthened divine patterns were amazing. Otherwise, the palace would have been smashed into powder. The power of the stars that fell from the sky was too terrifying. An ordinary place would have been destroyed by this power. Star godly chop! The great elder waved the huge axe in his hand and chopped towards Tianyun. He did not show any mercy at all. He attacked mercilessly and used all his strength. The power of the stars? Then let me break the sky. I will show you how to absorb the power of the stars. Tianyun's eyes turned cold. He flicked the evil spirit divine sword. Buzz! A terrifying evil spirit came out of the sword and surrounded his body. Then, it chopped towards the great elder. Instantly, the power of the ancient set was stacked. At the same time, a series of effects were triggered. Ding! Successfully triggered critical hit. Damage increased by 3 times. Dong! Suddenly, the evil spirit became 3 times bigger. It opened its huge mouth and swallowed everything in front of it. The evil aura immediately covered the whole palace. Those who got a little closer were immediately affected. They felt like their souls were being torn apart. However, they quickly retreated, not daring to take even half a step closer. If they did, their souls would be torn into pieces. This was just the aura released by the evil spirit. If they were hit by it, they would definitely die. Everyone looked at the evil spirit that could envelop the entire shrine, and they were all stunned. This was the most terrifying existence they had ever seen. This attack could even be said to surpass the Grand Elder, even surpass everything. Break! The Great Elder let out a furious roar and heavily struck down with his axe. The dazzling starry divine axe blossomed with an astonishing radiance. However, in this endless darkness, his starry divine axe's radiance was like a candle flickering in the wind and about to be extinguished at any time. No matter how dazzling the light was, it was completely devoured by this terrifying evil spirit's attack. Boom, boom, boom! The 2 frightening powers collided. The sharp starry divine axe chopped down. In the beginning, it was able to split open the axe a little, but in the end it was engulfed by the boundless black fog. The rest of the evil spirits continued to open their mouths and devour the stars that shrouded the sky in one gulp. All of a sudden, the entire world became dark, as if the end of the world had come. It was so dark that one could not even see their fingers in front of them. The sky has been devoured? Everyone immediately had the same feeling. The dazzling power of the stars that they were so proud of had been devoured just like that. What replaced it was endless darkness that enveloped the entire world. However, it did not last long. Soon, the evil spirit was retracted and absorbed back into the evil spirit divine sword. Light returned to the shrine, and everything was normal. The surroundings were not destroyed, and no one was attacked. Only the great elder fell to the ground. His face was black, and he held his head and screamed. Just like the third elder, he was also screaming. Without a doubt, his soul was being devoured bit by bit. There was no difference in the effect. The biggest difference was that the attack just now was extremely terrifying. It was much stronger than the attack that he had used against the third elder. The 2 were not on the same level, and the onlookers were dumbfounded. The invincible great elder had been killed in an instant? Both of them used one move, but Tianyun's attack was more domineering, and he directly suppressed the great elder. However, everyone could see that Tianyun had shown mercy. If the evil spirit had been a little more cruel, it would have definitely torn the great elder to shreds. However, he did not do so. The power of the stars is not bad, but unfortunately I've devoured it. Tianyun said calmly, the 2 of you can have your evil souls devoured bit by bit. I hope that you can turn over a new leaf in your next life. He put away the evil spirit divine sword. Everyone stared at him blankly. It was not that he was too arrogant, or that he had forced himself to endure, or that he had been blinded by victory. It was that he truly had the strength to withstand everything. Even the great elder had been crushed. Didn't that mean that he was stronger than the great elder? If he was stronger than the great elder, it meant that he was a sage ruler. Xingqian's son was a sage ruler, And such a young one at that? Everyone was dumbfounded. Jiao Lingyi covered her mouth in shock, and Yuanlong was even more dumbfounded. They had worried for nothing. Tianyun could have won from the beginning, but they had been too worried, and too distrustful of his strength. Ah, the two of them screamed incessantly. They could not withstand the devouring of their souls, and were slowly devoured. The speed was neither fast nor slow. Tianyun had deliberately controlled it. He did not want the two of them to die so quickly. "Save me, clan leader, save us!" The third elder crawled up with difficulty. His face was frighteningly pale, and his cold sweat had already soaked the ground. It looked as if he was soaked in a puddle of water. He crawled over to Suo Kaifeng with difficulty. His face was pale. He did not want to die, and he still wanted to live. However, he was now living a life worse than death, and he felt like committing suicide. However, he did not want to commit suicide. He did not have the courage to do so. Humph! Suo Kaifeng jabbed his walking stick, and the two of them were immediately shrouded, like a wall that blocked them outside. This is a life and death duel. Since you have chosen this, you must pay the price. He did not choose to shield them, but chose to stand on Tianyun's side. He chose to be fair. The life and death duel had already been decided, and he would be breaking the rules by saving them. Previously, Yuanlong had also almost broken the rules. If he had broken the rules, he would definitely have to pay the price. Tianyun looked at Suo Kaifeng, and nodded in satisfaction. If Suo Kaifeng had chosen to shield them, he would not have minded killing the two of them. Suo Kaifeng could ignore it, but he must kill the two of them. Chapter 719. Suo Kaifeng's ruthlessness caused many people's hearts to tremble. It seemed that their patriarch was really merciless, not willing to help, not even saying a word to help. This was really shocking. One had to know that the two people in front of them were elders. How could they just let them die like this? Wouldn't this make the current situation of Fengtian Divine Kingdom even worse? Originally, Fengtian Divine Kingdom situation was more serious. It had a relatively small number of masters. It was only in name, but in fact, the situation was already quite bad. The key point was that Great Elder's cultivation would break through to the Saint King stage in the future, but now that a Saint King stage master was dead? Yes, it was a life and death duel, but both of them had already lost the ability to move. It was already considered a loss. As long as they paid a small price, it wouldn't be long before they could redeem their lives. However, Suo Kaifeng did not do this. He chose to watch from the sidelines. "Patriarch, please save my father!" At this time, the Great Elder's sons, or those who had a little relationship with him, knelt down one after another. It was undeniable that Great Elder went to encircle Yixingchen, but it had nothing to do with them. As long as he was not related to them, it didn't matter. "Patriarch, we are willing to pay any price." Many people knelt down one after another, begging Suo Kaifeng to help them save the two elders. Yixingchen's life and death had nothing to do with them, they just wanted to save the two elders now. "It's useless to talk to me like this. If you want something, go beg Yixingchen's son." Suo Kaifeng was not a fool. He could feel that Tianyun's strength was very strong. At such a young age, he could obtain such a terrible power. If he did not give Tianyun face, he would definitely regret it. This was the most sincere thought in his heart. If they did not obey Tianyun, then they would miss a super genius. The key point was that from the point of view, Tianyun was not wrong at all. They had agreed to a life and death duel. If it was someone else, they would have already been cut into several pieces. This was a true battle of life and death, unlike Tianyun's torture. Their faces darkened, but they still ran over and knelt in front of Tianyun, begging Tianyun to spare the first elder and the third elder. "I beg you, let our great elder go. We're willing to give you all our treasures. Great elder, their treasures are all yours, please let them go." All of them were pleading, especially their descendants, who were constantly kowtowing. Even though he was extremely unwilling, This was the reality. With the difference in their strength, he could only kneel and beg for mercy. Tianyun stared coldly at the group of people and said coldly, "When my parents were surrounded and ambushed, what were they thinking? If not for my father's strength, they would have died long ago. I've been poisoned since I was young. If it wasn't for the antidote, I would have died a long time ago. Did they ever think of this when they did it? Let me ask you, if we did this, surrounded and killed the two elders, or even poisoned your own children, would you let us go?" His voice was not loud, but every word he spoke smashed into their hearts, full of shock. At the same time, they received a message, which was that there was no way they would let the two elders go. Because if they were in his shoes, they would never let them go. Please be magnanimous. Everything is in the past, please spare the great elder's life. All this while, we've been repaying evil with kindness. Please let the great elder go, we will be extremely grateful. Yes, yes, yes. Repaying evil with kindness, we will be extremely grateful. They kept begging Tianyun to let the two elders go, even bringing up the idea of repaying evil with kindness. But to Tianyun, it was meaningless. Sadly, I don't like to repay evil with kindness, and I've never said that I'm a good person. Tianyun said calmly. Just now they refused to repent and even tried to deny it. Even my grandfather was dragged into this mess. Leaving them here is just a waste of resources. Tianyun looked at the two elders who were rolling on the ground and ignored the disciples who were begging for mercy. No matter how they begged, Tianyun did not drink a single drop of water and looked at the two elders who were screaming in pain. It seemed like even if they were saved, their souls would be badly damaged. Jiao Lingyi's eyes were cold, and she had no intention of letting them go. Even Yuanlong did not try to persuade Tianyun to let it go. They were all ruthless people, and they knew how to treat others. If others gave them benefits, they would definitely repay them. If others gave them hatred, they would definitely take revenge. If the two of you can't hold on, I'll allow you to kill yourselves. Tianyun said calmly, I'll give you the last bit of dignity, which is equivalent to giving face to the Fengtian Holy Kingdom. They thought that Tianyun would say something, but it turned out that he wanted them to kill themselves. If they did not kill themselves, they would continue to be tortured. They now had two choices: kill themselves or wait for their souls to be gnawed to death. You will die a horrible death. I curse you to never be reincarnated. The great elder who was rolling on the ground struggled to get up, and raised his hand to slap his head. But just as his hand touched his head, Tianyun slapped the air and sent him flying. There are many people who curse me to never be reincarnated, and you are not one of them. I originally wanted you to die with dignity, but unfortunately, I hate it when people curse me, Tianyun said calmly. Since you want to curse me, I'll curse you to your heart's content. Then, he walked in front of the great elder, grabbed his head, and pulled out his soul. Then he threw it into the air, and a flame appeared, burning it crazily. The great elder screamed in agony, and the pain he was experiencing was many times more intense than before. Bastard, I want you to die, The great elder couldn't even speak clearly, and the flames burned him incoherently. This situation caused everyone's hair to stand on end. They didn't expect that Tianyun would be able to forcibly pull out his soul. He was simply a demon. On the side, the third elder also wanted to curse, but his heart trembled. Using the last bit of his strength, he took out a long sword and used his body to press down. With a poochie sound, the long sword pierced through his head, and he died. He didn't even have the strength to hold the long sword, and could only use his own body weight to press down and stab himself to death. If he still had the strength, he would rather fight Tianyun than choose to kill himself. With a bang sound, he completely stopped breathing, and lay on the ground, unable to move. Blood flowed everywhere. Suicide was terrifying, but the pain from being gnawed on by evil spirits made him want to kill himself. Chapter 720. The third elder's suicide caused many people to clench their fists, but they couldn't say anything. Life and death duels were basically like this. When Tianyun said life and death duels, their eyes were filled with ecstasy, and they thought he was an idiot. Now that Tianyun had done this, it made them angry and unwilling. Tianyun had nothing to do with them, so his life and death didn't matter. Similarly, the third elder and the others had nothing to do with Tianyun, so what did their lives and deaths have to do with him? Third elder! Many people cried out. They were the third elder's disciples, and many of them were even his apprentices. Now that their master had been killed, how could they feel good? They all glared at Tianyun, but it was meaningless. Tianyun didn't care about their looks at all. He had seen this kind of look many times and was already numb to it. It was normal for them to be angry and want to take revenge. To him, they were welcome at any time. If you want to take revenge, I welcome you at any time. My head is right here, waiting for you to take it, Tianyun said calmly. But if I find out that you attacked my family and friends, it won't be that simple. If you don't believe me, you can try. His tone was calm, but what he said wasn't simple, and it sounded terrifying. From the way the great elder was being tortured, it could be seen that if anyone dared to lay a hand on his family or friends, they would definitely die a horrible death. There was no point in talking. He needed to be strong enough to scare them. Otherwise, they would all look down on him, and there would be no point in saying anything. I beg you, please give our master a quick death. A few disciples came to Tianyun and knelt down. They knew that they couldn't change this fact, and they could only hope that Tianyun would give the first elder a quick death. They didn't want to see him being tortured here. They were furious and wanted to challenge Tianyun, but they knew that they couldn't win. Even their master had been crushed, so they would only die if they went up. Give your master a quick death? Tianyun looked at them coldly and said, I gave him a dignified death, but he didn't cherish it and even cursed me? Since he wants to curse me, then he can curse me at will. I will listen here. Then, he allowed the great elder to be set ablaze in midair. He turned around and walked towards Jiao Lingyi and the others. He smiled and said, Mother, Aunt, I didn't disappoint you, did I? You're still calling me Auntie? Shi Shuyan glared at him, hinting for him to change the way he addressed her. Hee, I almost forgot, Tianyun shrugged and said with a smile, I'll change the way I address you in the future. I should call you my wife now. Don't shout here. Shi Shuyan blushed, feeling very embarrassed. Jiao Lingyi, who was standing next to Tianyun, smiled and looked at Tianyun with a gratified expression. His performance surprised Jiao Lingyi. She thought that Tianyun was strong, but he was only at the 8th or 9th layer of Spirit King stage. Therefore, she was very worried when she faced the Great Elder. She was sure that Tianyun could use the power of the stars to unleash a terrifying power. But who knew that Tianyun would be killed in a second? Many people were angry when they saw the situation. They were filled with shame and anger. The Great Elder was screaming in pain, but they were still talking and laughing, so how could they not be angry? But it was useless to be angry. They couldn't defeat Tianyun, and their patriarch was the witness, so what could they say? This was the principle of the victor being king. Yuanlong also walked towards Tianyun and said, Child, give the Great Elder a quick death. He sighed. Although the Great Elder's death was not to be regretted, the punishment was too long, and everyone here was from the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. Since Grandpa said so, then I will give Grandpa face. Tianyun waved his hand, and the Great Elder in the air was immediately burned to death, leaving no residue behind. Along with the last scream, the Great Elder completely disappeared from this world. Without the Great Elder's screams, the entire hall finally quietened down. It wasn't as creepy as before. But then, the Great Elder's body started to burn, and in a blink of an eye, only a pile of ashes remained. The Great Elder's soul is gone, and his body will be burned to ashes. If it wasn't for Yuanlong's good attitude, and Yuanlong treated his mother well, it was enough to prove that he supported the union between the two of them. However, the entire tribe did not agree, so they could only forcefully separate them. In the end, they still chose to let Yixingchen leave, and the two of them would live outside forever. They thought that they would be able to live happily outside, but who knew that they would have to send off their son? Clan leader, thank you for your support. Yi Tianyun expressed his gratitude to Suo Kaifeng. If Suo Kaifeng had stopped him, he would have been in a difficult position. Every debt has a debtor. Just let him be. Suo Kaifeng shook his head, and then looked at the crowd coldly. This is a duel to the death. Before the battle, they had already made it clear. If anyone wants to seek revenge on him, they will be making things difficult for me. The crowd was stunned. Some of them were really thinking of ways to kill Yi Tianyun, but who knew that Suo Kaifeng would stand out and say something to dispel their thoughts? However, the crowd could only nod in agreement, and no one knew what they were thinking. In any case, this was just a verbal agreement. If they left and then attacked, no one would know. After all, the oath had not been made, so it was meaningless. Yi Tianyun knew that this was a friendly gesture. Suo Kaifeng was trying to rope him in. Losing two elders, the best choice was to let him join them, and he could fill the gap in this area. Then, Suo Kaifeng turned to look at them and sighed. Children, it has been hard on you all these years. Our stubbornness in our bloodline has indeed harmed you, but let it be. The restrictions in this area have been weakened. Moreover, that is in the past, and it was their fault, and also our Fengtian Divine Kingdom's fault. You still have the blood of the King of the Heavens in you. If possible, would you be willing to return to the Fengtian Divine Kingdom? I believe that your father would also be very happy to return. Suo Kaifeng smiled warmly. In order to make up for this mistake, we can provide you with the royal phoenix blood essence, and the heavenly fragrance divine grass. He immediately threw out a huge temptation, and more importantly, it was to make up for the mistake. This way, he would be able to win over the hearts of the people. Yi Tianyun knew that this would happen, and there was no way that Suo Kaifeng would let go of such a powerful force. The Fengtian Divine Kingdom had already declined, and if a powerful genius could join them, that would undoubtedly be the best choice. Yuanlong also looked at Yi Tianyun. He also hoped that Yi Tianyun and Yixingchen would return to the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. After all, this was their home. Although it was not a happy place, it was still their true home. Chapter 721. Suo Kaifeng's words caused dissatisfaction among the crowd, but most of them welcomed him with open arms. Yi Tianyun's strength was too strong. If he could join Fengtian Divine Kingdom, his strength would definitely be greatly enhanced. One must know that he was able to suppress two elders by himself, which showed how terrifying his strength was. To put it bluntly, he could already become an elder as soon as he took office. This existence was even more heaven-defying than Yixingchen. At most, Yi Tianyun was in his 20s. A 20-year-old Saint King stage master, they didn't even dare to think about it. It was simply a miracle. I have to save my father first. Yi Tianyun did not answer immediately, instead waiting for his father to wake up and see what Yixingchen had to say. In theory, he did not want to join the Sealing Divine Kingdom. His impression of the Sealing Divine Kingdom was simply too poor. Furthermore, the first elder and third elder's disciples were here. If he stayed here, he might even be ambushed. Moreover, he had his own forces. The only reason he came to Heaven World was to bring Shi Shuiyun back. The rest had nothing to do with him. It was just that he wanted to wait for his father to wake up before making a decision. That's for sure. I watched Xingchen grow up, I must save him. Suo Kaifeng came to the side of the crystal coffin and looked at it for a while before nodding. It is indeed bloodthirsty poison, a very fierce poison. It is very difficult to detect under normal circumstances. Only when it breaks out will one know that they have been poisoned. It is colorless and odorless, so it is difficult to detect. I didn't expect them to have such a terrible poison and use it on Yixingchen. After hearing this, many of the disciples' faces changed. Many of them had heard of this poison before. Bloodthirsty poison did not need too much, just a small drop would be enough. It was colorless and odorless. Once poisoned, it would not take long for the poison to break out. Blood qi would be completely suppressed, making it impossible to burn one's blood essence. As time passed, one's blood qi would become weaker and weaker. The treatment method was not easy, but it did not require blood drinking grass, so it was not exaggerated to this extent. Yixingchen's current situation was extremely bad. The bloodthirsty poison was deeply rooted in his body, so he needed precious elixirs to treat it. If it worked, Yixingchen wouldn't be lying here in the first place. That's right. When Xingchen was poisoned, we even forced our way out, causing the poison to seep deeper into his body. At that time, he was hiding everywhere and had no time to look for the antidote. By the time Anne arrived, the poison had already permeated her body. Normal antidotes had no effect at all. In order to find a better antidote, I searched for a long time. Jiao Lingyi's eyes were filled with hatred. Even though the great elder and the third elder were dead, she was still very angry. They just wanted to leave this damned place. Who did they offend? He hadn't harmed the Fengtian divine kingdom. At most, he had escaped. He had never thought of taking revenge on the Fengtian divine kingdom. Who knew that the two great elders would be so ruthless, not even giving them a chance to turn things around? Xingchen wasn't the only one who was poisoned. Even Tianyun was secretly poisoned. What are their hearts made of? Jiao Lingyi said angrily, "We were wrong, but how can you treat us like this just because we were wrong?" She yelled hysterically. Her voice was filled with anger and sorrow. Everyone fell silent. They couldn't deny that Jiao Lingyi and the others were wrong, but they didn't deserve to die. In the end, they became sacrifices for power and were killed by the two great elders. "This is my fault," Sua Kaifeng admitted. He sighed deeply and said, "No matter what, it's all over now. We should think about how to cure the poison. We don't have the blood-drinking grass or the imperial phoenix blood essence. We only have the heavenly fragrance divine grass." The blood-drinking grass. I just got it recently. Jiao Lingyi took out the blood-drinking grass. The surging blood qi was shocking. It was a rare 6th-grade spirit medicine. Looks like there's only one thing left. The imperial phoenix blood essence is expensive. It's worth 3 high-grade sacred tools. Now that the road is blocked, it's difficult to trade with the Phoenix clan. We can only send a few more masters down to see if we can trade. The imperial phoenix blood essence is much more precious than normal phoenix blood essence. Even if it's worth 3 high-grade sacred tools, the Phoenix clan might not trade. Sua Kaifeng and the others frowned. Every item was precious. 3 high-grade sacred tools were good, but the Imperial Phoenix blood essence was even more precious. The Imperial Phoenix blood essence? I happen to have it. Tianyun stood up and took out a drop of the Imperial Phoenix blood essence. 1 drop was enough for him. He planned to give the last drop to someone else, but who knew he would use it here? It really is the Imperial Phoenix blood essence. How did you get it? Everyone was shocked. They thought they would have to spend a lot of effort to get it. Who knew Tianyun had it? I helped the Phoenix clan before, so they gave me the blood essence. Tianyun explained. Everyone's jaws dropped. Although they didn't know what he helped them with, it was definitely important. The Imperial Phoenix blood essence was very expensive. It was not a reward that could be obtained from ordinary help. Did this mean that Tianyun had a good relationship with the Phoenix clan? Jiao Lingyi was startled. She thought of the indigo phoenix and smiled. She didn't say anything. Even the phoenix was there. It was enough to show how good their relationship was. She didn't say it out loud. Good, good, good. Yuanlong was pleasantly surprised. That means we have collected enough spiritual herbs. We can start making the pills now. Jiao Lingyi was also pleasantly surprised. She thought it would take some time, but now she didn't have to. Yes. We need a high-level alchemist to make the detoxification pill. He needs to be at least a master. There's only one chance. There won't be a second chance. Suo Kaifeng said solemnly. If the pill was made, the ingredients would become trash. They would have to find the ingredients again. It was rare enough. If they failed, it would be troublesome. They nodded in agreement. They had to find a high-level alchemist. Leave this to me. I'll go to the Medicine God Valley sect and invite an alchemy grandmaster to come and refine pills. It's too difficult to invite an alchemy grandmaster, Suo Kaifeng said in a deep voice. But try to invite an alchemy grandmaster, it will cost a little. The Fengtian Divine Kingdom doesn't have an alchemy grandmaster? Yi Tianyun asked curiously. As soon as he said that, everyone felt awkward. They didn't have an alchemy grandmaster or an alchemy grandmaster. It is not that easy to become an alchemy grandmaster. Do you really think that an alchemy grandmaster is as easy as a cabbage? Aren't you very powerful? Why don't you try to make one yourself? A discordant voice came from the side. It was evident that they were not happy with Chun Fan. These people must be on the Grand Elders or the Third Elder's side. Although they couldn't fight, they could still mock Chun Fan. Yi Tianyun didn't even look at them. He waved his hand and with a paw sound, Yi Tianyun was sent flying. His face was swollen. Chapter 722. Was Yi Tianyun an alchemy grandmaster? Of course not. He was just a high-level alchemy master, not an alchemy grandmaster. Transfer all the proficiency points to me. Yi Tianyun transferred all the proficiency points that he had previously obtained. Very quickly, millions of proficiency points were slammed into the high-level alchemy master, instantly filling up the proficiency points. Ding, successfully promoted to alchemy master. Ding, successfully promoted to alchemy grandmaster, Qi refining, level. The next level requires 10 million proficiency points. It was easy, there was no difficulty in leveling up. From alchemy master to alchemy grandmaster, one only needed 1 million proficiency points. Previously, when he completed the main mission, he had obtained a lot of proficiency points, but he had never used them. He wanted to use them according to the situation, where he needed them, and not just casually throw them in. Now was the best proof. He usually did not have time to refine pills, now he could only throw in proficiency points. A second ago, he was still a high-level alchemy master, now he had directly become an alchemy grandmaster. No one would believe this speed. A Qi refining level alchemy grandmaster, huh? Yi Tianyun smiled slightly. Alchemy grandmaster was the same as divine rune grandmaster. They were both divided into 3 stages. Alchemy grandmaster was divided into Qi refining, spirit refining, and soul refining. The higher one went, the more difficult it would be to cultivate. But to him, it was just a matter of proficiency. Although he was only at the initial stage of alchemy grandmaster, it was more than enough to refine this antidote. There was no difficulty. You are an alchemy grandmaster? Just as everyone was about to scold Yi Tianyun for acting so casually, they were deeply shocked by his word. It was fine that he was so young, but how could he be an alchemy grandmaster? Bragging should be done according to common sense. This was simply the rhythm of bragging. That's right, is there a problem? Yi Tianyun glanced over, that person's face was already swollen, and said, I do not like people casually interrupting. I am now asking the clan leader, not you. Indeed, he didn't ask anyone but Suo Kaifeng, who knew that someone would jump out because he was unhappy, so he didn't hesitate to pull back. This was truly arrogant to the extreme. Quite a few people were infuriated. It was one thing for him to make a move during the life and death duel, but who would have thought that he would still hit someone in front of the patriarch? Suo Kaifeng was too lazy to pay attention to them. This group of people was used to being arrogant. They thought that they could interject as they pleased. How impudent! If anyone interrupts again, get out of here. Suo Kaifeng snorted coldly and looked at Yi Tianyun in confusion. Are you really an alchemy grandmaster? Not to mention him, even Jiao Lingyi and the rest were doubtful. How could Yi Tianyun be an alchemy grandmaster at such a young age? Do you think I would joke around with my father's life? Yi Tianyun replied indifferently. It was just that simple and crude. Everyone was taken aback by his words. Yi Xingqian was his father. How could he mess around with someone else? However, that was impossible. Even if Yi Tianyun was born in his mother's womb, there was no way he could have become an alchemy grandmaster. Only Shi Shuiyun kept a smile on her face. She had seen Yi Tianyun perform alchemy before. Not only could he perform alchemy, he could also craft Dharma artifacts. He was almost omnipotent. Sometimes, even she couldn't figure out how Yi Tianyun did it. Although it was shocking, she didn't ask too much about it. That was because Yi Tianyun was the person she trusted the most. That alone was enough, so there was no need for her to ask any more questions. I had planned to let you guys perform alchemy, so I didn't want to interfere. This is a chance for you guys to make it up to me. Yi Tianyun shook his head and said, Who knows? We don't even have an alchemy grandmaster. It would take a lot of time and effort to hire someone from the Medicine God Valley sect. Especially since I don't know anyone, I will have to do it myself. His words were half true and half false. If they had someone on their side, he wouldn't have helped them. After all, he didn't need to perform alchemy at the moment. If there was someone who could perform alchemy, he wouldn't have helped. Now that he didn't have anyone, he had to step up himself. I trust you. Jiao Lingyi nodded. Although it sounded unbelievable, she still chose to believe her son. Yi Yuanlong nodded and chose to believe him as well. Why wouldn't his grandson believe him? Suo Kaifeng narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, Fourth Elder, go get him the heaven-fragrant spirit herb. Yes, family leader. The fourth elder quickly went to fetch the spirit herb, which meant that Suo Kaifeng had agreed to Yi Tianyun's alchemy. Soon, the heaven-fragrant spirit herb was handed to Yi Tianyun. The blood-drinking grass was also in his hand. Finally, all three items were gathered. Then, Yi Tianyun waved his hand and the roaring flame alchemy cauldron appeared in front of him. A sacred tool alchemy cauldron? Suo Kaifeng and the others' eyes lit up. Being able to have a sacred tool alchemy cauldron meant that he really knew how to perform alchemy. However, it was hard to say how good he was. The others stared blankly at the alchemy cauldron. How did this kid get so many treasures? Any one of them was enough to make people go crazy. A sacred tool alchemy cauldron was extremely precious. It was much more precious than weapons. I don't believe this kid can succeed. This is a 6th grade alchemy cauldron. If he is only a 5th grade alchemist or an alchemy grandmaster, it will be a joke. Yes, if he fails, everything will be in vain. Let's see how he ends up. Shu, lower your voice. If anyone hears you, you will be slapped. In the corner, someone was discussing in a low voice. Although they saw the alchemy cauldron, they really didn't believe that Yi Tianyun could succeed. He was so young and yet, he was already an alchemy grandmaster. If he was a 5th grade alchemist, it was possible, but it was impossible for him to be an alchemy grandmaster. It was even impossible for him to be an alchemy grandmaster. It was possible for him to be an alchemy grandmaster. Yi Tianyun didn't pay attention to these trash. When he got the 3 elixirs, he didn't hesitate to ignite the flame. The immortal fire was directly thrown into the alchemy cauldron. With a xiong sound, it quickly burned. Immortal fire. After Suo Kaifeng saw this terrifying flame, he immediately slapped his head and said in surprise, I almost missed it. The flame he used just now, wasn't it the immortal fire? I didn't pay much attention to it. It was this immortal fire that burned the Great Elder's soul. At that time, they were all focused on the Great Elder's pain and didn't think much about what kind of flame it was. Now that it was used, they were all shocked. This was a flame that belonged to the sacred fire. It was above the amazing phoenix fire. It belonged to the top alchemy sacred fire. Chapter 723. There were quite a number of alchemists who possessed mystical flames, but those who possessed high-grade mystical flames were extremely rare. For example, an alchemist who possessed an inextinguishable flame. Even the clan leader, Sua Kaifeng, had never seen one before. This was the first time he had seen an alchemist who possessed an inextinguishable flame. Those who possessed powerful mystical flames might not necessarily have a high level of alchemy. They might be alchemists or simply used it to kill their enemies. Other than that, there were no other effect. When Yi Tianyun said that he knew alchemy, other than the shocking alchemy cauldron, he also possessed an astonishing inextinguishable flame. Therefore, when he said that he was an alchemist grandmaster, many people immediately believed half of it. With such an astonishing ability, how could they not believe half of it? The problem lay in the following alchemy techniques and what not. It all depended on how he did it. Yi Tianyun did not care about the gazes of the people around him. He threw in 3 spiritual herbs in one go, scaring everyone. What's going on? He threw in all the ingredients? Everyone was dumbfounded. Normally, one would throw in all the ingredients one by one or one by one. This way, it would be easier to refine the ingredients slowly. Although they were not alchemists, they had seen many alchemists do it. Therefore, they more or less knew a little about it. Who knew that this time, Yi Tianyun threw in all the ingredients in one go? These were all high-grade spiritual herbs. The difficulty of refining them was much higher than ordinary ones. Throwing in all the ingredients in one go undoubtedly doubled the difficulty. Even Jiao Lingyi and the rest were dumbfounded. Who would have thought that Yi Tianyun would refine pills in such a way? It was beyond their expectations. Crackle, crackle, when the 3 ingredients were thrown in, they immediately exploded. The entire alchemy cauldron shook violently as if it was going to explode at any time. One by one, they subconsciously dodged to the side, not daring to go near. The explosion of a high-grade pill was definitely not weaker than the attack of a super elite. They could only quickly move further away, otherwise they would be the ones to die. Idiot, is this guy really an alchemist? He threw in so many spiritual herbs in one go. He's going to explode. That's right. Quickly move further away. If it explodes, we're dead. I don't want to die. Is this really an alchemy grandmaster? He's basically an alchemy idiot. Even if I were to refine pills, I'd still be better than him. Their eyes were filled with disdain. They felt that Yi Tianyun was an alchemy idiot, and that any second or third grade alchemist could refine better than him. At least they knew how to distribute the elixirs and throw them in for refining. However, Yi Tianyun just threw them all in. According to the terminology of alchemists, this was a foolish act of courting death. Yi Tianyun's expression was indifferent, and he couldn't be bothered to pay attention to their gazes. The inextinguishable flame crazily increased the intensity of the flames, and the refining speed suddenly increased. Zhang Xian skillfully melted the spirit herbs in the cauldron. Even though there was a series of crackling sounds, the cauldron did not explode. He continued to refine the spirit herbs in a steady and safe manner. Just when they thought the cauldron would explode, it didn't. The cauldron remained stable. Standing at the side, Sua Kaifeng's eyes flickered. At first, he thought that Zhang Xian was refining randomly, but now he realized that everything was refined according to the normal order. In fact, it was much faster than the normal order. In less than a moment, all the elixirs were melted into liquid, and he began to extract the essence and remove the impurities. Bit by bit, he condensed the pills. The order was no different from that of ordinary alchemists, except that it was too simple and crude. Cooking in one pot. They thought that the cauldron would explode, but as time passed, nothing happened. Instead, they could see the pills being condensed. The whole process didn't take more than a few hours. It should be known that refining a 6th grade pill would definitely take a few days, or even a week or two. On the contrary, he was about to succeed. His speed was far beyond their imagination, shocking them. Impossible, can he really succeed in concocting pills? This cauldron should be exploding soon, right? Until the end, there's no telling if he can succeed or not. Sometimes there will still be failures in the end. Yes, it's okay at the beginning, but the difficulty of collecting the pills is also greater. The spiritual energy is too strong. If he can't fuse them, everything he has done before will be in vain. They still weren't convinced. They felt that Yi Tianyun would still fail in the end. Unfortunately, their speculation didn't last long. Yi Tianyun moved his fingers, and the flame inside suddenly increased. Not only did the pills not explode, but they also accelerated the fusion process. Ready to take the cauldron? Yi Tianyun said indifferently. After a moment, he gently waved his hand. With a dang sound, the top of the raging flame pill cauldron popped up, and 2 pills flew out from inside. As soon as the pills flew out, they turned into a red light and flew towards the door. They were actually trying to escape. The 6th grade pill had a preliminary spiritual nature, and it planned to escape from here and run outside. If it ran away, it would be very difficult to find it. After all, the pills were so small. Hiding them was undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. Come down. Yi Tianyun's eyes turned cold. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at the void, and the 2 pills fell into his hand just like that. When he opened his hand again, 2 bright red pills appeared in front of him. They looked as shiny as pearls, and there were even 5 ripples flowing on them. Fifth refinement grade 6th grade pills? After everyone saw it clearly, they immediately gasped. They thought that Yi Tianyun was refining 1st refinement grade pills. Who knew that it was 5th refinement grade pills? This was definitely a standard that was extremely difficult. 6th grade pills were already difficult to refine. Now that there was the 5th refinement mark, it meant that the effect had greatly increased. It was at least 7 or 8 times the effect of 1st refinement. The key was that there were 2 pills. Everyone thought that he could only refine 1, but he could refine 2. 5th refinement grade pills. This kind of alchemy technique really leaves us in the dust. Suo Kaifeng's eyes burst with light. The way he looked at Yi Tianyun was a little more pleasantly surprised. If Yi Tianyun's cultivation had surprised him before, now that he had an additional alchemy grandmaster level, Yi Tianyun was even more gold-plated. And it was the kind that was blindingly bright. These are the pills that I've refined. I wonder what's wrong with them? What do you think about my alchemy level? Are you talking nonsense? The 2 pills floated in Yi Tianyun's hand. He looked around and said calmly, "Is there anyone else who thinks that my pills are ineffective?" If someone wanted to say that there was a problem with him, let alone one reason, they could come up with hundreds of reasons. At this moment, everyone fell silent, not daring to say anything. Chapter 724. Aren't you worried that the cauldron will explode? Suo Kaifeng looked at the 2 pills. If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he would have found it unbelievable. It was too fast and of such high quality. Only people with poor control will take it slow. I just don't want to waste so much time. Yi Tianyun glanced at Yi Xingqian lying in the crystal coffin and said, "Father is waiting for the antidote, so I have to be quick." Alchemy was never about technique. It was about the alchemist's ability. If the alchemist was too weak, they would have to throw it in bit by bit. He had perfect control, so he wasn't afraid of the cauldron exploding. He could throw in a cauldron casually, and his speed was amazing. Suo Kaifeng shook his head and said, "I have to say, you are as good as the medicine god Valley Sect's elders," Yi Tianyun said as he looked at Suo Kaifeng. If Yi Tianyun could stay in the sealing heaven divine nation, he would be as good as the elders. Not to mention the elders, he would be worth more than Suo Kaifeng. Not only did he have combat strength, but he also knew alchemy. That alone was amazing. Mom, this is the pill. Give it to father. If it doesn't work, there is a second one. Tianyun handed one of the pills to Jiao Lingyi. Jiao Lingyi took the pill excitedly and nodded. She stepped in front of the crystal coffin. She gently pushed open the crystal coffin and released a cold aura. If one looked closely, they would see snow lotuses and other things. Just like Renjiro, Tianyun relied on these things to help him sleep. In this case, it could make the effects of his deep sleep even better, and it could also greatly reduce the consumption of his own energy. Some of the elders who were about to step into their coffins would seal themselves into a deep sleep. This way, they would be able to live a little longer. When necessary, they would break the seal and come out to help the sect one last time. There were many people like this. Most of the elders chose to seal themselves. If there was a pill that could prolong their life, they could live longer. Jiao Lingyi stuffed the antidote pill into Yi Xingqian's mouth and used her spiritual power to help him absorb it. Very quickly, the detoxification pill was absorbed, leaving nothing behind. It hadn't been long since he started to absorb the energy, but his face immediately started to regain some color. From the initial bit of redness, it gradually became more and more rosy. Not only his face, but even his hands and feet gradually became rosy. A thick blood qi was released from his body, and the effect was quite shocking. This was a 5th refinement grade medicinal pill, so how could its effects not be shocking? It was definitely 7 to 8 times better than an ordinary refined pill, which was equivalent to taking 7 to 8 pills. It was impossible for it to be bad. Jiao Lingyi was helping him absorb the energy. Yi Xingqian was in a deep sleep, so the absorption was slower. He needed someone to help him absorb the energy. Yuanlong watched nervously from the side. He also wanted to help, but it was better to have as few people involved as possible. The more people there were, the more chaos it would cause. The two of them had never worked together before, so working alone was the best choice. Besides, they didn't need anyone's help now. Jiao Lingyi could do it herself. Her cultivation is already at the 4th layer Spirit King stage, which is quite a powerful level for her. But for the Sealing Heaven Divine Nation, this wasn't their ultimate goal. They needed a strong descendant. In this divine nation, it was the Saint King stage that determined the strength, not the Spirit King stage. Most of them were stuck at the Spirit King stage, and it was difficult for them to continue to break through. Many geniuses thought that they could break through to the Saint King stage, but most of them were stuck at the Spirit King stage, which showed how difficult it was to break through. That was why they paid so much attention to their bloodline. Even if they were stuck at the Spirit King stage, as long as they had enough star energy, they could crush everything. The previous Great Elder was the best example. His bloodline was pure, and he was at least at the 2nd or 3rd layer Saint King stage after using his bloodline. If it was anyone else, they would not be able to do it. Even the evil spirit race would not be able to do it. From this, one could see the importance of bloodlines. It was not that they looked down on the experts of the outside world, but that only those with the bloodline of the heaven-sealing God King could use the power of the stars. Soon, with the help of the detoxification pill, Yi Xingqian's condition quickly improved. Well, Yi Xingqian's eyelids twitched and he slowly opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Jiao Lingyi and Yi Yuanlong looking at him worriedly. Father? Yi Xingqian hurriedly sat up, but he felt dizzy, so he could only lean on the crystal coffin and look around. He found that he was in the Sealing Heaven Divine Nation. Clan leader. He didn't know what to say now, but he didn't expect that after escaping with Jiao Lingyi, he would end up in this place. Well, it's good that you woke up, it's good that you woke up. Suo Kaifeng looked at Yi Xingqian with a kind expression on his face. Lingyi, didn't I say that I can't come back? Yi Xingqian said in a low voice. He wasn't afraid that something would happen to him, but he was afraid that something would happen to Jiao Lingyi. It's okay, everything is solved, it's all because of our son. Jiao Lingyi looked at Yi Tianyun with relief and excitement in her eyes. Our son? Yi Xingchen turned his head, and his eyes fell on Yi Tianyun. He was dumbfounded. My son. Yes, this is your son, Tianyun. He's already grown up, and he helped us solve everything. Jiao Lingyi's eyes were full of pride. This was their son, who said that a super genius would only appear if the bloodline of the King of the Heavens was strong. Now, their son was a super genius. Father, you're awake. Yi Tianyun walked over and clasped his hand. Looking at Yi Xingchen lying in the crystal coffin, Yi Tianyun had mixed feelings. He didn't know what his father's personality was like. Son, I'm sorry. Yi Xingchen reached out and patted him on the shoulder. He didn't know what to say, so his first sentence was an apology. They knew that they owed him a lot, and there was nothing they could do to make up for it, but they could only say sorry. It's okay, it's all in the past. Yi Tianyun smiled. They didn't do anything wrong to him, it was the power that was at fault. Son, it's been hard on you as well. Yi Yuanlong's eyes were red. How could he not be emotional when he saw his son wake up? Father! Yi Xingchen's eyes were full of guilt. He had let down two people in his life. One was Yi Tianyun, and the other was his father. Jiao Lingyi told him the gist of what had happened. Yi Xingchen was shocked, and he stared at Yi Tianyun in disbelief. If Jiao Lingyi wasn't his wife, he wouldn't have believed it. Chapter 725. Yi Xingchen's successful recovery proved that Yi Tianyun's alchemy skills were absolutely top-notch, and the effects of the pills were even more amazing. Yi Xingchen, who was originally pale and had a head full of white hair, had now returned to his normal state. He was full of vigor, and with his jet-black hair, he looked like he was in his 20s. 3 supreme-grade elixirs, each of which was equivalent to half a divine weapon. How could the effects be bad? Not only did it help him recover, but it also replenished a lot of vigor. There was a lot of vigor that he had not absorbed and could be stored. He could continue to absorb it in the future, and not only would it not be bad, it might even be stronger than before. However, it would still take some time for him to completely recover his cultivation. After sleeping for so many years, it was not that easy to recover. Especially with the shocking power of the bloodthirsty poison, the corrosion was more serious, so it would take a long time to recover. However, with this amazing antidote, it would not take too long. At most, he would be able to return to his peak in a year or so. Suo Kai-feng immediately began to make arrangements for them to live here, and everything was properly arranged. Although many people were resentful and expressed their dissatisfaction with Yi Tianyun, no one would do anything to him, and they all stayed obediently. The few of them received the highest standard of treatment. No one would believe that they could receive such treatment after killing 2 elders. The real inside story was equivalent to killing 2 traitors, so the treatment was definitely different. If the first elder and the third elder were killed by Yi Tianyun without any problems, Suo Kai-feng would definitely go after him instead of treating them well. That was simply the behavior of an idiot. In any case, the matter had come to an end. After resting for a few days, Suo Kai-feng invited them to the main hall. In these few days, Yi Xingchen learned everything. While he was angry at the 2 elders for their treachery, he was more impressed that his son was too strong and had already surpassed him. During this period, they had a lot of communication and their intimacy level had skyrocketed. Clan leader! When they entered, they saw Suo Kai-feng standing on the side with a cane. Looking at his back, they all sighed. Suo Kai-feng couldn't hold on for too long. Now that this problem had appeared, it was quite serious. You're here. Suo Kai-feng turned around and looked at them. He smiled faintly and said, I'm sure you've already guessed it in your heart. Actually, his goal is very simple. He wants you all to return to the sealed sky divine kingdom. Although we have done many things wrong, this is a rule that has been ingrained in us for many years. We can only choose to compromise. However, I believe that after I hand it over to you, the Fengtian Divine Kingdom will definitely undergo great changes. The future of the sky-sealing Divine Kingdom will depend on you. Patriarch, what do you mean? Yuanlong was shocked. I plan to pass the position of Patriarch to you. Or rather, I've been planning to pass it to you from the very beginning. The Great Elder and the Third Elder aren't bad, but I could tell that they were too ambitious. Compared to you, I don't have much ambition, but I'm too stubborn. Sometimes I need a little ambition to stimulate me. Sua Kaifeng smiled faintly and said, Now, my greatest wish is for you all to return. I can't deny that I like Tianyun's strength. He can make up for the loss of the two great elders. Although the sky-sealing Divine Kingdom is doing well, it's actually not as good as it used to be. If a powerful enemy invades, we might be defeated. Sua Kaifeng's words were very straightforward. He didn't beat around the bush or play any tricks. He knew that he didn't have much time left. There was no need to do this. He could only keep them here. Otherwise, it would be meaningless. Patriarch, I've said it before. Everything depends on Father. Yi Tianyun threw the question to Yi Xingqian. He wanted to hear his opinion. Yi Xingqian was silent for a moment. Then, he nodded and said, I know that even if we return, there will still be many people who reject us. However, I still plan to return with Ling He. I owe this place too much. I need to make up for it. Although there are many obstacles, I believe that with hard work, many people will change their minds. However, Tianyun's situation is a little complicated. He has power in the mortal realm and can't bear to give it up. I'm not a responsible father. I can't decide whether he stays or goes. It's still up to him. Yi Xingqian looked at Yi Tianyun and threw the question back at him. The reason was that simple. It wasn't that Yi Xingqian was trying to shirk his responsibility. He just felt that he wasn't responsible enough to decide Yi Tianyun's situation. Everyone's eyes gathered on him again. They wanted to hear what he had to say. I'm afraid I can't join this place. However, the Fengtian Divine Kingdom is in trouble. I will definitely help. Yi Tianyun didn't choose to join. He could only say that he would help if needed. After all, his parents and grandfather were here. He couldn't just ignore them. Sua Kaifeng was disappointed. However, he was comforted when he heard that he could help. He couldn't force anything. If they didn't reject outsiders marrying, Yi Tianyun would definitely stay here. Moreover, there's something very important. It's not just our problem. It's the problem of the three realms. He briefly explained the situation. It was the problem of the demons sealed by the three godly kings. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect such a thing to happen. How could they not be shocked when the end of the world would happen in 100 years? I've read about this. There are records of this in the documents left by our ancestors. They said that they were sealing the demons in the mortal realm. They didn't say where exactly. I didn't expect the demons to still be alive after so many years. Sua Kaifeng was shocked. They were just as shocked, because they had to face a godly king. If a godly king appeared, the three realms would be greatly affected. If there were no other godly kings to resist, they wouldn't be able to resist. Yes, not only is it not dead, it's getting stronger. Yi Tianyun said in a low voice, That's why I have to build a stronger force or join forces with the powerhouses of other god nations. I have to get all the powerful god nations of the three realms to join forces. Otherwise, it'll be hard to resist. 100 years, Sua Kaifeng thought for a while and said, I will seal myself. When the demons appear, I will definitely come out with the patriarch to suppress them. There was another patriarch in the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. His cultivation was higher than his, but he was too old. Coming out was equivalent to dying. He wouldn't come out unless it was critical. Once he did, he would die for sure. But with our current forces, it's too difficult to deal with a godly king. Sua Kaifeng shook his head. His heart trembled at the thought of godly king. This was a supreme existence. Once they attacked, they would die. That's why we have to see if there are other godly kings. Yi Tianyun said in a low voice. Godly kings? I haven't heard of them in a long time. Maybe they don't exist. Maybe they're in seclusion. I'm afraid there are no godly kings in the three realms. Suo Kaifeng shook his head. If there were godly kings in the three realms, they would have established the strongest empire a long time ago. They would even be ambitious enough to unify a large territory. Especially when a godly king appeared. The world would definitely change. It would be hard not to know. If there are no godly kings, I will break through to become a godly king. Yi Tianyun's voice was powerful and full of confidence. After I break through to become a godly king, I will kill this demon once and for all. Chapter 726. Yi Tianyun's ambition deeply shocked them. Then Suo Kaifeng laughed and looked at him. You are young and full of vigor. Well said. I look forward to the day you become a divine king. The path to becoming a divine king is extremely difficult. If you don't even have the confidence, how can you become a divine king? Yes, it is a little difficult to become a divine king, but as long as you work hard, you still have a high chance. Yi Xingqian also encouraged him. The others also looked at him encouragingly. They didn't think that Yi Tianyun would definitely become a divine king. They only thought that he had a chance to become a divine king. After all, he was still young and had a lot of time. Who knows, he might really become a divine king. As for those who believed that he would be able to break through to the divine king stage, it was too exaggerated. No one dared to guarantee it. This was especially the case when it wasn't that there weren't these types of geniuses. They reached extremely terrifying cultivation at a young age, but they quickly reached their limits, unable to take even half a step forward. Therefore, they didn't dare to say anything. They could only say that they had to work hard and have a chance to become a divine king. Yi Tianyun knew what they were thinking, but he didn't think much of it. It was too difficult to become a divine king. If it was easy, there would be at least 1 or 2 divine kings around. But now, there were no divine kings. Even the number 1 faction didn't have a divine king. There were a few peak saint kings, but none of them could become divine kings. It was like they were stuck in something. It wasn't that they didn't have the ability to break through, but they were blocked by something. Then, he felt a warmth in his hand. When he turned around, he saw that it was Shi Shiyun holding his hand gently. Her eyes were full of confidence. I believe in you. She didn't say much, just 4 words. She believed that Yi Tianyun would definitely become a divine king. She believed that her man could definitely become a divine king, the king of the 3 realms. Yi Tianyun smiled. With her trust and support, it's enough for him. We don't have much time left in 100 years. Therefore, I plan to go to the underworld to take a look and find another godly king to establish a faction. We need to work together to have a chance of dealing with this demon. Yi Tianyun said solemnly, perhaps I will be able to suppress this demon in the future. However, I have a feeling that other than this demon, there will be more demons barging in. When the time comes, all of us will have to work together to resist, and not be separated like we are now. More fiendish demons are charging in. They looked at each other in dismay. This was a rather terrifying thing, but when they thought about it carefully, it wasn't impossible. Since the first fiendish demon had barged in, there would definitely be more fiendish demons barging in. It was only a matter of time. Child, the responsibility you shoulder is too heavy. Suo Kaifeng sighed and said, That's right, since you don't plan to stay here and need to return to the mortal world to manage your forces, before you leave, the only thing I can help you with is to bring you to obtain the inheritance of my ancestors. Patriarch? Yuanlong and the others revealed shocked expressions. One must know that in order to feel the inheritance of their ancestors, one must be a patriarch or an elder. Now, even Yi Tianyun didn't plan to join, and he was allowed to go? I know what you are thinking. At this stage, and Tianyun is a descendant of our ancestors, obtaining the inheritance shouldn't be much of a problem. It's just that his bloodline is thin, so the effect might be a little weaker. But it's better than nothing. As for the other elders or others who object, Tianyun can become our elder. He doesn't need to manage anything, and can move around freely. That shouldn't be a problem, right? Sua Kaifeng looked at Tianyun, wanting to hear what he had to say. No problem. Becoming an elder is not a problem at all. However, I feel that there will be many who object to me becoming an elder. Tianyun laughed at himself. He had killed 2 elders, so many who originally stood on the side of the great elder would definitely object. Don't worry, even if they object, I will force you to become an elder. Sua Kaifeng's voice was full of majesty. If there is no problem, I plan to take you to obtain the inheritance of our ancestors now. What do you think? Of course, there is no problem. Tianyun smiled. He didn't reject any inheritance, the more the better. He was especially curious about the power of the stars. His bloodline was a little thin, but if he could obtain the corresponding awakening, he would definitely be able to erupt with greater power. Who would dislike having too much power? Of course, the more the better. Then, under Sua Kaifeng's lead, they went straight to the peak of the heaven-sealing God Mountain. There were many disciples guarding this place, and they were all at the Void Spirit stage. When they saw Sua Kaifeng coming over, they all opened up a path to let them in. However, on their way in, they immediately heard a shout behind them. Patriarch, Patriarch! Following that, a group of people rushed over. Most of them were elite disciples, and each of them was a pillar of the heaven-sealing divine kingdom. What's going on? Sua Kaifeng looked at them with a calm expression. None of this was out of his expectations. Patriarch, are you bringing them to the heaven-sealing divine monument at the peak of the mountain? The person leading the group was the 5th elder of the heaven-sealing divine kingdom. Yes, is there a problem? Sua Kaifeng said indifferently. There is no problem. Normally, people will go to the heaven-sealing divine monument to accept the inheritance. Who are you sending to accept the inheritance? The 5th elder's face was solemn, and the disciples following behind him also had stern faces. Their gazes were not very friendly, and it was obvious that they had come with ill intentions. I'm sending him to accept the inheritance. Sua Kaifeng pointed at Tianyun and said, Patriarch, you can't do that. He hasn't joined the heaven-sealing divine kingdom, and he isn't even an elder. He can't accept the inheritance. The 5th elder's face darkened. It was just as he had expected. A large number of people were heading towards the inheritance. As for the person who was going to receive it, it was undoubtedly Tianyun. Both Yuanlong and Xingchen had accepted the inheritance, so it couldn't be them. I'm officially announcing that he will be the 2nd elder, replacing the 2nd elder. Sua Kaifeng announced. I was planning to announce it later, but since the 5th elder has said so, I'll announce it now. The 2nd elder will inherit my position and become the patriarch of the heaven-sealing divine kingdom. Xingchen will also become the 1st elder. The sudden announcement shocked many people. Not only would Tianyun become the 2nd elder, but Yuanlong would also become the next patriarch. Even Xingchen had become the 1st elder. This meant that the entire family held the most authority. Who would dare to oppose them? Chapter 727. Sua Kaifeng's announcement stunned them. Even if they had guessed it, they did not expect all of them to become elders. Would there still be a place for them then? Tianyun was stunned. He thought that Sua Kaifeng was really bold to make Yuanlong the clan leader. This was not a problem at all. However, making him and Xingchen an elder was another matter altogether. It was true that Xingchen was originally a member of the clan, but in theory, he was considered a traitor. Although he had rejoined the clan, it was too much of a joke for him to immediately become the Grand Elder. Clan leader, you mustn't do this. We have absolutely no objection to the 2nd elder becoming the clan leader, But why were Yi Xingchen and his son able to become the elders? They have not contributed to the clan at all, nor do they have any prestige. If they become elders just like that, it will definitely cause chaos. The fifth elder's expression was solemn. It was not that he was spouting nonsense, but if he really did this, he would definitely feel that Suo Kaifeng was being too casual. It was as if he was old and blind, and his brain was not working properly. That was why he made such a ridiculous decision. Things did not go beyond Yi Tianyun's expectations. There would definitely be people who would talk about this. After all, it was inevitable. Yi Xingchen also nodded. He felt that he should not do this. Even if he had returned, he should have accumulated his power bit by bit to gain the recognition of his fellow disciples. Otherwise, without prestige, it would be difficult to convince the masses. At that time, no matter what he said, no one would listen. It was useless to just have a position. No one would listen, and it would be no different from having none. Xingchen had already been chosen as the next elder a long time ago. Many people agreed on this. However, the situation changed, and everyone rejected the two of them together, which caused this problem. Suo Kaifeng said coldly, if it wasn't for the previous Grand Elder and the third elder rejecting the two of them, would they have ended up in this situation? In fact, they chose to reject the two of them so that they could secure their positions, which made many people oppose them. Now, open your eyes wide and take a look. Are the sons they gave birth to inferior? The patriarch's aura instantly suppressed them, rendering them speechless. If the two elders had not rejected him, Yi Yuanlong would have become the clan leader and Yi Xingchen would have been qualified to be an elder. Yi Tianyun's cultivation was so strong that he didn't feel any pressure at all when he became an elder. His strength was outstanding, and yet he was not given the position of an elder. Wasn't he looking down on him too much? Even if he didn't have any real power, he should at least be an elder. There was no doubt that strength reigned supreme. Yi Tianyun took a deep look at him. No wonder Suo Kaifeng said he was confident. It sounded reasonable. To put it bluntly, if it weren't for the fact that some people were idiots, they would have done it long ago for their own selfish interests. Now, he was just reascending. He was ascending according to the previous rules, and he didn't break any rules. Everyone looked at each other. That was indeed the case. The people of the sky sealing divine nation really had to take responsibility for what had happened in the past. Even so, it's still not enough. At this time, a young man stood up and looked coldly at Yi Tianyun. His cultivation is very strong, but you must know that the person receiving the inheritance must have a high concentration of bloodline. I've checked his concentration before, and it's very low, almost negligible. A strong cultivation can become an elder, but the inheritance shouldn't be suitable, right? If he can do it with such a thin bloodline, then why can't I? The person who stood up was none other than the number one prodigy of the sky sealing divine nation, Yi Failong. Looking at his furious expression, it was obvious that he was not on their side. He was probably on good terms with the first elder or the third elder. Yi Tianyun narrowed his eyes at this person. Yi Failong's cultivation was not bad. At such a young age, he had already reached the 6th or 7th layer of the void spirit stage. Of course, compared to him, he was worlds apart. But Yi Tianyun swung his hand and slapped Yi Failong, sending him flying. Yi Failong even rolled a few times. He looked at him indifferently and said, "Do you know what the problem is now? If it weren't for the fact that his grandfather was preparing to become the patriarch, and other matters, he would have slapped Yi Failong to death. This was why he was a little unhappy. He wanted to hit Yi Failong, but he couldn't. It wasn't that he was too merciful, but in theory, Yi Failong was on his side. Yi Failong was stunned. As expected, he slapped someone without saying a word. He didn't even know what was going on. Hearing Yi Tianyun's words, he was even more confused. What did he mean by knowing the problem? What the hell? You actually dare to hit me? Long shouted, I don't know anything. I only know that you are too cruel. Other than bullying people, what else do you know? But Tianyun slapped him again, sending him flying again. This time, his mouth was full of blood and he was slapped silly. Cruel? Why don't you try saying cruel to your enemy? In this world, strength is everything. You want to reason with others? In this world, the one with the bigger fist is the true truth. The winner takes all, and the winner becomes the true king. Tianyun said coldly, my fist is big. Just this alone is enough. Whoever doesn't treat me well, I'll kill them. Whoever is willing to submit to me, I'll be willing to treat them well. It's that simple, and I don't talk nonsense. No matter how good your reasoning is, it can't be compared to a punch from someone else. Do you understand, idiot? A bunch of arrogant people who think they're so great, but you haven't even been to a real battlefield. How many dangerous places have you been to? How many life and death battles have you participated in? Looking at your pathetic faces, I know that you haven't participated in any. You've all been holed up here cultivating. When the real enemy attacks, you'll be the first to die. A bunch of trash. If it weren't for Grandpa managing this place from now on, I would have destroyed all of you with a slap. When the time comes, we'll see if your reasoning is more useful, or my fist is more useful. What **T reasoning are you talking about? The real reason is to use the strongest power to make everyone submit to you, without any resistance. The Fengtian divine kingdom wasn't established by reasoning, but by using one's own fist. Do you understand? His words were powerful, and many of the disciples were stunned. Because of the Fengtian divine kingdom, most people wouldn't find trouble with them. Thus, many of them hadn't experienced any bloody battles, let alone dangerous situations. How would they dare to casually send people to dangerous places? At most, they would send them outside to kill weaker demonic beasts. When they heard this, they were all dumbfounded. They were obviously about the same age, but their auras and tone were completely different. The things they had experienced were also completely different. Chapter 728. Tianyun's words made many people nod, especially Sua Kaifeng's group. They definitely have a deep understanding of Tianyun. Whose fist was the hard truth? What **T reasoning? It was all **T. If one could conquer the world with just their mouth, what was the point of cultivation? First, suppress everything with the strongest power, then slowly build up their strength. That was the best way. If everyone disobeyed, how could they manage? If they couldn't even manage, how could they become strong? That was simply wishful thinking. The disciples were dumbfounded and didn't know what to say. Tianyun's words had a huge impact on them. What **T reasoning? A single punch was better than 1,000 mouths. Let's go back to the original point. Why am I qualified to obtain the inheritance? Even if I don't have any bloodline, I'm qualified to go. It's very simple. I'm strong enough. Just this point alone is enough. If the Fengtian divine kingdom is weak, and the other divine kingdoms attack, you can reason with them and say that their bloodline is too weak to accept the inheritance. Do you think they'll listen to you and scram obediently? Don't be silly, you bunch of idiots. To them, it doesn't matter if they can use the inheritance or not. They'll just occupy it. Tianyun's words made sense. He didn't use his fists on them. If it wasn't for the fact that they were related to the Fengtian divine kingdom, he wouldn't have bothered with them. Long covered his mouth in silence. He didn't dare to say anything. Tianyun was right. If the Fengtian divine kingdom was any weaker, they would have been destroyed long ago. At that time, reasoning would be useful. If it was, then it would be useless. Well said. Sua Kaifeng looked at them and said coldly, This is the reason why I made him an elder. No matter how weak his bloodline is, he must accept the inheritance. Even if it's just a small increase, it's equivalent to strengthening him. After all, He has the bloodline of the Fengtian divine kingdom. He's one of us, not an outsider. I'm sure all of you can tell that I'm on the verge of collapsing. I'm just trying to save some foundation for the celestial sealing kingdom. So many divine nations have been eyeing our ancestors' inheritance for many years. Don't think that this place is unbreakable. Once our enemies realize that we have weakened or that our forces are unable to keep up, they will immediately lead their troops to flatten our Fengtian divine kingdom. Patriarch, they cried out sorrowfully. They wanted to say something else, but it was as if something was stuck in their throat. Not a single word came out. Moreover, do you really think that he will hold the power here and stay here forever? Suo Caifeng shook his head. If it weren't for his nostalgia, I'm afraid he would have left long ago. I have my own empire, I personally established it. I believe that it will soon become a divine nation's power. Yi Tianyun coldly said, I have no interest in Fengtian divine nation. To be honest, I don't care about power or resources. To tell you the truth, I'm the inheritor of the heaven-creating divine king. Just having the inheritance of the heaven-creating divine king is enough. These words shocked them. Everyone knew that the heaven-creating divine king was superior to the king of the heavens. With the inheritance of the heaven-creating divine king, there was no need for the king of the heavens' inheritance. What was even more exaggerated was that Yi Tianyun had created his own empire. Although there was a huge gap between an empire and a divine nation, it was inconceivable that he could create his own empire at such a young age. All of them were stunned. The group of young disciples looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. They looked about the same age, but why was the gap between them getting bigger and bigger? Obtaining the inheritance and creating an empire felt like a miracle. Yi Tianyun was trying so hard to persuade them. Wasn't it for the sake of Fengtian divine nation and his grandfather? After all, this was his grandfather's territory in the future. Thinking back to the previous situation, when did he become so long-winded? He could just slap them to death. What did their life and death have to do with him? It was like his own child. No matter how much trouble he caused, he could only slowly teach him instead of killing him with a stick. In the future, he would have to rely on the younger generation to fight against the monsters and demons. The inheritance I have now, in addition to what I deserve, is more of a kind of compensation, Yi Tianyun said in a deep voice. Think about what kind of compensation it is. Compensation. Needless to say, it was the trouble caused by the two elders. Killing them and compensating them with the heavenly fragrant divine grass was enough? Of course not. If they didn't reject it, they would have gotten more. Under the continuous bombardment, all of them were frightened and couldn't say a word of objection. Even the fifth elder didn't know what to say. They were all intimidated by Yi Tianyun. Suddenly, they felt that giving Yi Tianyun the inheritance was equivalent to giving them a reward. If not, Yi Tianyun wouldn't stay here. If Yi Tianyun didn't stay here, it would mean that there would be one less expert to hold the fort. That would be embarrassing. Soon after, Suo Caifeng smiled faintly and continued to lead them forward. This time, no one refused him. But they still felt it was unfair that they could receive an inheritance with such a thin bloodline. The main thing was that, if they received an inheritance with a thin bloodline, the effect would be very poor. It was a waste. Soon, they came to the top of the mountain. There was a stone tablet on the side. It was covered with dense divine runes. They didn't know what it was used for. The divine bloodline tablet. Yi Tianyun looked at the stone tablet and immediately knew what it was. It was specially used to test the power of bloodlines. Back then, it was used to test his and everyone else's bloodline. Wait a minute. Just as they were about to continue in, another voice came from behind. Then, a group of people came in from outside. It was obvious that they were from another group, and they were also the elites here. Clan leader, what's going on? It was the sixth elder. There were many elders here, but none of them didn't oppose Yi Tianyun receiving the inheritance. What's wrong with bringing the second elder to receive the inheritance? Suo Kaifeng said calmly. You can't do that. The bloodline density is too low. Even if you receive the inheritance, the effect will be very poor. If you can't even reach the standard, it will be a waste. The sixth elder was the same as the previous group of people. They were all here to stop Yi Tianyun from receiving the inheritance. After one group was intimidated, another group came. But he wouldn't say it again. Why not? No matter how bad the effect is, there will still be some. Even if it's a waste of the number of times, it's still worth it. Suo Kaifeng said in a deep voice. I am still the clan leader, so I have the final say. Chapter 729. Clan leader, you mustn't. Sixth elder knelt down and cried. Now that the number of words in the inheritance has decreased greatly, there aren't many chances left. Instead of wasting it, why don't we use it on the stronger disciples? I know he's very powerful, but this is a waste. If the bloodline is too weak, the effect is almost negligible. Not only sixth elder, but everyone else also knelt down. Only the group of people brought by fifth elder did not join in the persuasion. Yi Tianyun glanced at them and found that his speech could increase their favorability. He found that these people's favorability quickly increased to more than 50 to 60 after his speech, and some were even about to break 100. These people were all around the same age, and were easily influenced by his word. Especially such a legendary achievement, it was easy to attract their admiration. Especially his strength was very strong. When stacked, the favorability would increase very easily. He smiled slightly. It seemed that conquering this place was not as difficult as he thought. It seems that you don't treat me as the clan leader anymore. Suo Kaifeng frowned, and his aura immediately increased. No. Sixth elder's heart trembled, and he said while prostrating on the ground, I just want to think about the future. I'd rather give everything I have to second elder as compensation than to waste this opportunity. So far, the inheritance is about to collapse after less than 10 chances, and every chance has to be used on the disciple with the best bloodline. There's no need to say any more. Just do as I say. Suo Kaifeng ignored him. The only thing he could do now was to rely on the inheritance stone tablet to make Yi Tianyun stay, which was equivalent to a kind of compensation. The rest were quite ordinary, even the divine weapons were the same. No matter how powerful a divine weapon was, could it compare to a set of divine weapons? I want to test the concentration of the bloodline again. At this moment, Yi Tianyun stood up and said, Sixth elder is indeed more considerate. If my bloodline is really not up to standard, then I am willing to give up this inheritance. He did not expect that there was a limit to the number of times. It seemed that this inheritance stone tablet had been used too many times, causing it to collapse. Everyone was stunned. Wasn't this a slap in the face? They could have walked further away, but they didn't want others to look at this place. Back when Yi Tianyun had taken the test, there had only been a slight fluctuation. If it had been any other disciple, it would have been an utter humiliation, and they would never be placed in an important position in their lives. Now that Yi Tianyun came to take the test, wouldn't he be recalling the pain of the past? The patriarch had clearly tried his best to protect him. If he had persisted a little longer, he would have definitely gotten the inheritance this time. However, he still said that. Instantly, everyone's favorability towards him increased greatly. Those who originally hated Yi Tianyun now had a favorable impression of him. At the very least, it wouldn't be a negative number. It had been a long time since he had taken a close look at his favorability. He had been running around all this time and hadn't been in the mood to tame them. It didn't matter what their favorability was. If possible, he also did not want to fall out with the sky-sealing divine kingdom. Now it seemed that everything was going smoothly. The sixth elder and the others were overjoyed. They looked up at Yi Tianyun and said, Thank you, second elder. They didn't have any objections to Tianyun becoming the second elder. With his strength, they could only approve of him. However, obtaining the inheritance was another matter. The benefits were too low, and they really didn't want to waste this opportunity. This, Suo Kaifeng frowned, but he still nodded and said, "All right, let's take the test." Everyone had strange expressions on their faces. Some shook their heads, thinking that Tianyun was trying to embarrass himself. He had dared to take the test even though his bloodline was so weak. If they were in his shoes, they wouldn't dare to try again. In any case, no matter how many times he tried, the result would be the same. However, they only thought about it in their hearts. They didn't say it out loud. Tianyun's words were too shocking. So what if his bloodline was weak? Just this achievement alone was enough for him to look down on everyone. Shortly after, Tianyun walked up to the bloodline stone tablet and smiled. Who said that his bloodline would definitely be weak? His bloodline had already become extremely powerful over the years. As for the bloodline of the King of the Heavens, he wasn't too sure. However, he believed that it would definitely be strengthened. Moreover, it was very likely that he had been poisoned by the bloodthirsty poison. That was why such a situation occurred. No matter how weak his bloodline was, it should be able to pass, right? Shortly after, he placed his hand on the bloodline stone tablet. With a buzzing sound, his bloodline emitted a dazzling light and shot up to the sky. Looking up from where he was, it wasn't a ceiling. Instead, it was an empty space forming a patio. When the light shot up to the sky, it instantly lit up one of the stars in the sky. Soon after, the second star was lit up. Almost instantaneously, the second star was lit up. Then, the third star was lit up. Everyone was dumbfounded. The passing line for the bloodline test wasn't high. You only needed to light up one of them to pass. This was just the beginning, and he had already lit up 2 stars. He was even preparing to light up the third. This is already 2 stars. Our son's bloodline isn't weak. It's not weak at all. Jiao Lingyi was so excited that tears were about to fall from her eyes. Yes. Yixingchen nodded heavily. Previously, no matter how he tested it, there was no effect at all. Not to mention lighting up 1 star. He didn't even have the slightest effect. This bloodline stone tablet didn't require any spiritual energy to activate. All he needed was the power of his bloodline. The others were even more shocked. They thought that not a single star would be lit up this time. In the blink of an eye, 2 stars were lit up. Very quickly, he continued to light up the 3rd star and moved on to the 4th. There were a total of 9 stars here. He had already lit up more than half of them. He can't possibly have more than 5 stars, right? Everyone was dumbfounded. The strongest among them, the Grand Elder, could only light up 4 stars at most. As for the clan leader, he could only light up 5 stars. Yixingchen and Yi Feilong were known as the number 1 geniuses. Just by lighting up 5 stars, they were already known as the strongest geniuses. As for those who had more than 5 stars, that was a thing of the past. Now, those who could light up 4 stars were already listed as targets to be groomed. Very quickly, Tianyun lit up the 4th star and moved on to the 5th. The sky was filled with a dazzling radiance. Everyone in the Fengtian Divine Kingdom raised their heads in shock and looked at the dazzling stars. Who could have caused such a change? Buzz. Following which, the 5th star was completely lit up and moved on to the 6th star. There was no problem at all. In fact, there was plenty of energy left. The lighting speed was quite fast. In the blink of an eye, a star was lit up, including the 6th star. Buzz. The 6th star in the sky lit up the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. Countless rays of light shone down like a miracle. Chapter 730. 6 stars. How many years had it been since anyone had managed to light up this star? Other than the sleeping ancestor lying on the ground, it was hard to find a living person who could light up 6 stars. This meant that the purity of the bloodline was very high, and it was a very shocking one. I'm not dreaming, right? 6 stars have been lit up, the 7th is about to be lit up. I'm not dreaming. He really did light up 6 stars, and he's about to light up the 7th. Who the F***ck said that his bloodline is weak. He's already lit up 6 stars. What the hell? It's different from what we said. What happened? Could it be that there's a phenomenon of bloodline atavism? Did he achieve a breakthrough after his cultivation increased? I've never heard of this before. Most of the time, the results are the same when they are tested again. It's not like you haven't seen it before. The clan leader and the others have tested it before, and the number of stars that can be lit up is still the same. There's no change. Instantly, the disciples on the ground were in an uproar, and so were the disciples outside. They did not know who had created this miracle, but their hearts were filled with admiration. It was as if they were witnessing the birth of a miracle. Many disciples swarmed over from other places. They could not go up, but they could still witness everything from below. He's already prepared 7 stars. Sua Kaifeng was shocked. He had previously tried to protect Yi Tianyun, thinking that he could not possibly have a strong bloodline. He was only willing to sacrifice himself to keep Yi Tianyun here. If Yi Tianyun's cultivation was weak, he would not have bothered. Respect for martial prowess was an unchangeable principle, and it was the same for people of the same clan. Most people thought that they had seen a ghost. One must know that they had all been tested before, and many people had seen it. They wanted to give Yi Xingchen a chance to see how strong their son's bloodline was, but who knew that there was no effect at all? I know! Jiao Lingyi shouted. It must be the bloodthirsty poison. He must have been poisoned back then, that's why there's no effect at all. What? He was poisoned back then? Sua Kaifeng and the others were shocked. Although they had heard of it before, they did not know the details. Now that they thought about it carefully, Sua Kaifeng and the others' expressions turned ugly. Could it be that they knew about Tianyun's situation? That his powerful bloodline was a threat to their position, and that was why they poisoned him? Sua Kaifeng and the others were so angry that they wanted nothing more than to drag them out and whip their corpses. However, they had already turned into a pile of ashes, and it was impossible to whip their corpses. That's possible, but it's also possible that they're trying to kill us all. No matter what bloodline they have, they're trying to use poison to kill us. Yuanlong's eyes were cold. If he had known about this earlier, there wouldn't have been so many problems. In fact, it might even affect the structure of the entire Fengtian Divine Kingdom, so that it wouldn't be too xenophobic. However, all of this had been erased by the first elder and the third elder. They had been forcefully erased almost 20 years ago. Otherwise, such tragedies would not have happened. It could be said that there were many. Apart from the 2 of them, there were many cultivators who went out and met good women, but they couldn't get together. It was really a sad thing. From now on, this matter will be very easy to solve. I thought that it would take a lot of time to change, but now it seems that it won't take too much time. Sua Kaifeng laughed. With this precedent, it meant that everything depended on who had the bloodline, and it didn't need to be a strong combination. The effect would definitely be better if it was a strong combination, but it didn't mean that it would be worse if it was an ordinary combination. Everything depended on the person. If the other party's talent was not weak, the effect would definitely not be weak. Yi Tianyun didn't care so much. He just looked at the stars in the sky and smiled. This was the result he wanted to see. With the increase of his cultivation and the strengthening of his bloodline power. Although the bloodline of the phoenix and the bloodline of the god of the dragon had nothing to do with the king of the heavens, they could all strengthen and stimulate the power in his body. When he became stronger, the power of the bloodline hidden in his body would also become stronger. However, it didn't show its true power. It didn't show in the bloodline section that he had obtained any bloodline power. it hadn't been shown. It seemed that he had to stimulate it to turn it into his own power. This power should be the inheritance. It seemed that he had to obtain this inheritance no matter what. But looking at the situation now, even if he didn't want it, others would fight to let him obtain it. 1. The seventh star was quickly lit up. Outside, there were already thousands of rays of light shining down, covering the land. Everyone was shocked. Those who didn't know thought that some genius had appeared, but those who knew were deeply shocked by Tianyun. He let them know what was called a misunderstanding. Such a powerful super genius was almost strangled in the cradle by the two elders. After the seventh star was lit, the eighth star quickly lit up. It can still continue? Many people almost swallowed their tongues in shock. It looked too terrifying. They thought that the seventh star was the limit. Who would have thought that there would be an eighth star? But could the eighth star succeed? The answer was quickly revealed. He had successfully lit up the eighth star without any effort. After the eighth star was lit, he continued to rush towards the last star. He was preparing to light up the eighth star. This was something that had only happened in the past several thousand years. No one knew how long ago that had happened. Everyone was dumbfounded. If this continued, his bloodline would be the closest to that of the King of the Heavens. 1. The eighth star was lit up. Outside, countless rays of light shrouded it. It was a miracle. Everyone looked over. The experts of the other God Nation forces also sensed the situation. What's going on? Someone from the Fengtian God Nation actually lit up the eighth star? They were all stunned, and then killing intent flashed across their eyes. It was not a good sign for such a situation to occur. If this genius was allowed to grow, the other God Nation forces would be in danger. It was very likely that the Fengtian God Nation would return to the top. But the prerequisite was that this genius had to become a true expert. I don't know who it is, but before this person becomes stronger, we must kill him. All the God Nation lords' hearts sank. They had been eyeing this place for a long time. They originally thought that they would wait for the God Nation to decline a bit before ruthlessly conquering it. Who knew that a super genius would appear now? How would they deal with him then? Little did they know that the person being tested was Tianyun, a genius who had already become an incomparably powerful expert. Chapter 731. When the eighth star was lit up, it was as if the entire world was lit up. Many people were shaken to the core. They felt as if a terrifying force was smashing into their hearts. Especially when the ninth star was about to be lit up. Their hearts were about to fly out of their throat. This was too terrifying. It was beyond their expectations. They had thought that it would stop at the seventh or eighth star. Now it was already at the ninth star. It was going to be a terrifying achievement. Many people didn't know if anyone had ever lit up the ninth star before. It was too long ago for them to investigate. At least now, the ninth star was about to be lit up. It was the child of a husband and wife who had betrayed the Fengtian godly nation. All the disciples were dumbfounded. Who the F***ck said that the children they gave birth to were of poor bloodlines. If the great elder and third elder were still in this world, they would definitely be incomparably shocked. This far surpassed their imagination. Although they were no longer in this world, their disciples were. When they saw this scene, they couldn't help but feel regret. Great elder, your decision is wrong. Moreover, it's extremely wrong. They looked at the 8 stars in the sky. They could feel that a person's selfish desire could make a super genius disappear. The decline of a godly nation was mostly caused by their own people. They were the black sheep of the herd. This was the best proof. They only wanted to be promoted, but didn't care about the development of the godly nation. This kind of person was the most despicable. When the godly nation was conquered, it was too late to regret. Almost instantly, their impression of Tianyun skyrocketed. Most of them were not hatred, but admiration and guilt. They were the first elder's disciples, but after knowing the truth, they were furious. Some didn't want to admit it, but now it seemed that they had no choice. Regardless of whether Tianyun can light up the 9th star or not, at least he has become the person who has lit up the most stars in the world. Shi Shuyun looked at Tianyun's back and smiled. She was also surprised by this situation. However, compared to other things about Tianyun, she didn't think it was a problem. Buzz. In the end, the 9th star was still lit up. Everyone was dumbfounded. Who would have thought that the 9th star could still be lit up? He was the only one in the world. He really did light up the 9th star. How terrifying! Doesn't that mean his bloodline is the closest to that of the King of the Heavens? This is too abnormal, simply inconceivable. That's right, it's simply unbelievable. Could it be that some kind of atavism really happened? Although it hasn't happened before, it doesn't mean it won't happen to him. All of them were incomparably shocked. The 9th star sphere had been completely lit up, and its light illuminated the earth, almost shocking the entire heaven realm. It could not be said that all the forces in the heaven realm knew about it, but at least most of the god kingdoms knew about the situation here. Everyone was paying attention to the situation here. Now that the 9th star had lit up, their hearts pounded wildly. Could it be that the second king of the heavens was about to descend? As long as there was enough time, becoming the second king of the heavens wouldn't be a difficult matter. Just when everyone thought that everything was about to end, boom! The 9 stars connected, forming a beam of light that shot up into the sky, scattering the clouds in the sky. Following that, an incomparably huge star appeared in everyone's line of sight. When everyone saw this incomparably huge star, they were all stunned. The 10th star. No one had ever seen such a scene before. They all thought that there were only 9 stars. But now, the 10th star had appeared, and it was even bigger than all the other stars combined. Now, the light shot up into the sky and fiercely collided with the 10th star. It began to light up bit by bit, but the speed was very slow. The 10th star? Light it up for me. Tianyun's eyes flickered incessantly. He increased the strength of his hand, and the power of his bloodline began to surge. Dong! The bloodline steel blossomed with even more dazzling light, and the speed at which it was lighting up immediately increased. At this rate, the 10th star would definitely light up, and there would be no suspense at all. Finally, under this light, the 10th star was completely lit up. Following that, a beam of light enveloped Tianyun's body. The next moment, Tianyun actually disappeared. A group of dumbfounded disciples was left looking at the bloodline steel. Tianyun's figure was nowhere to be seen, as if he had never been on the steel in the first place. After the light disappeared, the star in the sky was once again shrouded by the clouds, returning to its original appearance. He's gone? What's going on? He's gone? One by one, the disciples cried out in alarm. This was something they had never seen before. Whether it was being teleported away or the 10th star, this was the first time they had seen something like this. Not to mention them, even Suo Kai-feng and the rest were seeing something like this for the first time. Someone had disappeared after lighting up the 10th star. Where did he go? It seems like there's no need for me to bring him to the inheritance. I'm afraid the ancestor has already brought him to the true inheritance ground. Suo Kai-feng shook his head and turned to look at them coldly. Now you know what the problem is. We almost lost a super genius. No, it should be said that we've already lost half of one. If it weren't for the actions of those two before, this situation would not have happened. One by one, the elders and disciples lowered their heads in shame, not knowing what to say. They all understood why it was called lost. Because Tianyun had not been raised here since he was young. In a situation where he was already very strong, it was impossible for him to take them as his master. This was like sending charcoal in snowy weather, better than adding flowers to brocade. At the same time, the powerhouses of the divine kingdoms outside were all dumbfounded. The 10th star, what's going on? This is the first time he's seen 10 stars. How did he do it? Quick, ask the people there to find out what's going on. Just who is it that can attract so many stars? Find out everything about that person. I want absolutely detailed information. Don't miss a single word. Find out everything for me, no matter what the information is. This child absolutely cannot be allowed to live. If he continues to stay here, our future days will not be easy. The experts of all the forces were in chaos. They all sent people to inquire about the news or to see the situation. Just who was it that could do such a thing? Chapter 732. The people outside were trying to guess who it was and which prodigy had appeared. The people inside the teleportation room were wondering where Tianyun was teleported to. No one knew where he would be teleported to because they had never experienced it before. They could only stare blankly at the sky, not knowing what was going on. Where is he going to be teleported to? Suo Kaifeng looked at the sky, his eyes flashing with curiosity. It was very likely that he would only be teleported out after he lit up the 10th star. According to the records, an ancestor had lit up the 9th star before, but he was not teleported out. Now that Tianyun had been teleported out, it meant that he had lit up the 10th star. Our son actually lit up the 10th star. This is unbelievable. Yixingchen hugged Zhao Lingyi tightly. He was extremely emotional. Yes, this is our son, the one and only. Tears gushed out of her eyes. When the two of them got together, she felt extremely guilty, especially when Yixingchen chose to give up the Fengtian divine kingdom to be with her. Apart from feeling touched, she also felt extremely guilty. If not for her, why would Yixingchen have left the Fengtian divine kingdom? This was a divine kingdom, not an ordinary sect. The amount of resources provided by such a huge sect was terrifying. It could only be described as terrifying. Especially when Yixingchen had lit up 5 stars, he had a very high chance of inheriting the position of clan leader in the future. Just this one deal alone would have been worth a lot of resources. Who would have thought that Yixingchen would give up so many resources to choose her? She was very touched, but also very guilty. After all, she had nothing with her, and there was no good place to cultivate. Especially when Tianyun did not inherit any bloodline, she felt even more sorry for Yixingchen. She felt that she had ruined Yixingchen's future. Now it seemed that she had overthought things. Everything was the fault of the 2 elders. It was not their fault. How could things have turned out like this? None of this could have happened. At least it did not prove that Yixingchen had chosen the wrong person, but the Fengtian divine kingdom. At the same time, after Tianyun was teleported away, he entered a special space in the blink of an eye. He had just teleported here, and what greeted his eyes was a vast space that stretched as far as the eye could see. There was nothing special about it, just an endless plain. When he raised his head slightly to look at the sky, he discovered that there were 9 continents floating in the air around him. When he looked back, he found that there was a cliff behind him. When he walked over, he could clearly see the palace below. This is the space of 10 stars? Tianyun wasn't too surprised. When the 10th star appeared, the light from the bloodline steel had teleported him here. Without a doubt, he had been teleported to the 10th star. When he saw the palace below, he knew that he had been teleported up. The palaces below were the 5 divine mountains of the Fengtian divine kingdom. Due to the fact that flying was prohibited in this area, there was no way for them to come up to this star. Only through the teleportation array could one enter this area. How are these stars? They are completely 10 treasures. Tianyun's heart shook violently. These so-called 10 stars were not stars, but 5 continents floating here. Looking at them from above, he thought they were stars when he saw the twinkling light. Who knew that they were not stars at all, but 10 divine artifacts. 9 of them were low-grade divine artifacts, and 1 of them was a mid-grade divine artifact. These formed the power of the 10 stars. They were all interconnected, transmitting power to each other, and continuously absorbing spiritual power from the surroundings to replenish the consumption here. There were many creator-level divine runes engraved on them. He could tell at a glance that this was definitely the work of the heaven-creating Divine King. It was not a problem for the heaven-creating Divine King to help the King of the Heavens engrave the divine runes. It was just that the King of the Heavens loved his descendants too much. He had left 10 divine artifacts here. As long as one obtained the inheritance, one could activate the power of these 10 divine artifacts according to the power of one's bloodline. It was no wonder that when the Great Elder broke out, the power of the divine artifacts increased greatly and became very terrifying. According to how many stars one could light up, how many divine artifacts could be activated. This meant that when the Great Elder broke out, he activated 5 divine artifacts to attack. Coupled with the huge divine rune array here, how could the power be weak? It had to be said that the King of the Heavens really put in a lot of effort. In order to let his descendants develop well, he made 10 divine artifacts and threw them here to cover the heaven realm. It seems that I can only use them in the heaven realm. Tianyun looked at the 10 divine artifacts that covered the heaven realm. The mortal world and the underworld were not in the same area. How could he use them? Now that he had 10 divine artifacts, if he activated them, the power would be even more terrifying. Then, he walked over. He had only taken a few steps when a spirit flew out from the middle. It looked at him and said respectfully, "Welcome, new master. I became your master after activating the 10th star?" He looked at the weapon spirit in front of him. As a mid-grade divine artifact, it was not surprising that it could become a weapon spirit. Yes, the previous master said that as long as you can activate the 10th star, you will become my new master. This weapon spirit looked like a young man. He came to Tianyun's side and was very respectful. Did the other divine artifacts transform into weapon spirits? Tianyun asked. Actually, the other divine artifacts are all my original bodies. I have a total of 10. Originally, the old master wanted to make a high-grade divine artifact, but who knew that he would fail, so he remade it and created me. The weapon spirit answered honestly. Tianyun's heart shook. There was such a thing? If he thought about it carefully, it was possible. If he failed, it would not be completely useless. With a little modification, it could still become a decent divine artifact. But if he wanted to make it into a high-grade divine artifact, that was not very possible. From this, he could tell that the King of the Heavens was also an artificer, and a very strong one at that. He could even make divine artifacts. That was really shocking. The 10 divine artifacts were actually a whole. This was the first time he had seen this. It made him sigh that the King of the Heavens was really strong. Other than this, did my ancestors say anything else? Tianyun was a descendant of the King of the Heavens, otherwise he would not be able to come up. Even if he only had a trace of the bloodline, he could still come up. If not, he would not be able to come up. Of course, from the looks of it, his bloodline could not be weak. Yes, other than telling me to become the next master, I also told you to make good use of me and protect the entire heaven realm. The weapon spirit answered honestly. Chapter 733. Protect the Heaven Realm? Tianyun was very puzzled. It should be protecting the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. Why would it protect the Heaven Realm? Doesn't it mean that it needs to protect the other divine kingdoms at the same time? You mean to resist the invasion of the demons? Tianyun immediately thought of this matter and asked subconsciously. It seems that Master knows about the situation of the demons. This saves me a lot of explaining. The artifact spirit said with a smile. The old master set this up before, to a large extent, to protect the heaven realm from the invasion of the demons. At the critical moment, it can resist the attack of the demons. If there is no master, I will automatically resist the invasion of the demons. Now that there is a new master, you need to learn how to control the divine artifact here to protect the entire heaven realm from the invasion. Tianyun nodded and asked doubtfully, "Can I use it for other things?" "Yes, but the main purpose is to resist the demons. If the demons don't attack, you can use it at will," the artifact spirit explained. "That's good." Tianyun's eyes flickered. If it can only be used to resist the demons, then it doesn't seem to have much meaning at the moment. So, there are similar protective treasures in the mortal world and the underworld? He wanted to know the situation of the mortal world and the underworld so that he can subdue them and use them for his own purposes. Yes. The Heaven Ascension altar in the mortal world is the best treasure to resist the demons. Not only the mortal world, but the underworld and the heaven realm also have Heaven Ascension altar. The artifact spirit will not lie, Tianyun is its master, so it will answer like this. Heaven Ascension altar? Tianyun was stunned and asked doubtfully, "There is a Heaven Ascension altar in the mortal world, how come I don't know about it?" Such a huge altar, if he knew about it, he would definitely know about it. Many cultivators will gather there. It should be under the water of the Devil Cloud Island. There was a war there before, causing a strange phenomenon. The artifact spirit said, "In the past, I fought with the old master to expel the demons. The power of the 3 Heaven Ascension altars is amazing. The heaven-creating Divine King is indeed the strongest Divine King and the strongest leader." The artifact spirit showed an expression of worship. This was the biggest difference between it and the phantom. Phantom spirits could only speak according to the master's settings. Artifact spirits had intelligence, so they were more lively. It turns out to be in the area of the Devil Cloud Island. No wonder I didn't sense anything. Tianyun nodded. The heaven-creating Divine King really put in a lot of effort. He had 3 altars, and it seemed that he could fly back and forth. It was just that when he was teleporting, he couldn't sense the Heaven Ascension Temple in the mortal world. Clearly, something had gone wrong. Otherwise, if they could travel back and forth, there would be no need for teleportation channels. Initially, he thought that since the underworld and heaven realm had ascension temples, why didn't the mortal realm have them? After all, the mortal realm was one of the main battlefields, so it was normal for it to be affected. Clearly, there was more than one demon. It was just that the sealed demon was the most powerful one. Since he couldn't kill it, he could only seal it. "Are there any other divine artifacts?" Tianyun continued to ask. "Yes, there is a heavenly rock-suppressing ancient tablet in the mortal realm that suppresses the most powerful demon. Its cultivation is roughly at the 8th level of the God King stage, but I don't know what's the situation now." 8th level of the God King stage, Tianyun's heart sank. This was really a terrifying combat power. No wonder he felt so oppressed when he released a little bit of his aura. This cultivation was too terrifying. If he broke the seal, he might even reach the peak of the God King stage. With his current cultivation, he could easily be slapped to death. There was no way he could resist the suppression of a God King stage cultivator. Fortunately, they still had 100 years. If they rushed out immediately, they would definitely die. "Anything else? Tell me all of them," Tianyun said. "That's about all the mortal realms. The heaven realm only has me and the heaven ascending divine altar. As for the underworld, it's mostly under the heavenly underworld sacred land. I don't know if the descendants of the ancient underworld God King are still guarding there," the artifact spirit said truthfully. "The heavenly netherworld sacred land? I roughly understand." Tianyun nodded. He roughly understood. The next step was to find the descendants of the ancient underworld God King. He had to inform them about the demonic demons breaking the seal so that they could work together to suppress them. The heaven-sealing divine kingdom had already done the work. Now only the underworld was left. He couldn't hope to contact all the divine kingdoms to suppress them. He had to contact the key divine kingdoms first. When the time came, he would announce it to the outside world. As for whether they believed it or not, it had nothing to do with them. When the war started, there were bound to be casualties. This was inevitable. Apart from that, is there anything else I can do here? Tianyun asked. Nothing else. I just want to tell you this. The artifact spirit flipped his hand and a jade pendant fell into Tianyun's hand. Finally, take this jade pendant and repair the inheritance steal. Also, obtain the most complete inheritance. The old master left his divine sense in the inheritance steal, waiting for the new master. Tianyun took the jade pendant and nodded. If he could repair the inheritance steal, it meant that he could gain more prestige. Previously, the sixth elder had rushed over to beg Tianyun not to obtain the inheritance, mainly because the inheritance steal was about to break. That was why he didn't let him go. If there were no problems, the sixth elder definitely wouldn't stop him. If I want to come here, I have to go through that steal? Tianyun asked again. No, you become the master of this place. You can fly up at will. You won't be suppressed. You don't need to go through that place, the artifact spirit said. You mean I won't be suppressed? Tianyun's eyes lit up. That way, most of the suppression in the area wouldn't affect him. Yes, the artifact spirit said. Tianyun nodded. Then he turned and flew down. As expected, he wouldn't be suppressed at all. He could fly as he pleased. From today onwards, this was his territory. He could control the divine artifact to suppress everyone. Who in the entire heaven realm would dare to be his enemy? Everyone was still standing in front of the bloodline steal in a daze. They were all guessing where Tianyun had gone. However, not long after, they saw a figure flying down from the sky. Look, a figure is descending. At this time, someone noticed the situation in the sky. Everyone raised their heads and looked up. They really saw a figure descending. After a while, Tianyun steadily landed on the ground. A group of people looked at him dumbfounded. They didn't know what to say. Especially those who originally opposed Tianyun. Now, their hearts were incomparably conflicted. Most of them had a huge impact. Those who resisted previously had now created a miracle of activating 10 stars. Chapter 734. Looking at the many disciples, Tianyun felt a sense of relief. This was the feeling he wanted. Although he didn't mind that the Fengtian kingdom wasn't too friendly to him, it would be best if they could be friendly to him. No one liked a faction that was related to him or had a bad relationship with him. His grandfather and father were both here. He couldn't just leave them behind, let alone ignore them. You're back. What's going on up there? Sua Kaifeng and the rest leaned over excitedly. They had never been up there before. Therefore, when they saw Tianyun return, they were extremely excited. We'll talk about this later. Let's go to the legacy stone tablet first. Tianyun smiled. All right. Sua Kaifeng and the rest nodded. They knew that this was an important matter and it wasn't appropriate to talk about it here. When the rest of the disciples saw this, they revealed disappointed looks. They thought that they would be able to hear some news. Who knew that Lin Fan wouldn't say anything? They could only follow and see what was going on. Under Sua Kaifeng's lead, they arrived in front of the legacy stone tablet. The first thing they saw was the gigantic legacy stone tablet. This stone tablet was 100 zhang tall and stood in front of them like a city wall. As they approached, they could feel a majestic aura surging towards them. It made them want to prostrate themselves in worship. The stone tablet was inscribed with many divine inscriptions. If one looked closely, they wouldn't be able to see the content of the inscriptions. There were many cracks on the huge stone tablet. It looked like a broken stone tablet. Who knew how many years it had been through for this to happen? The damage to this legacy stele is quite serious. Tianyun sized up the legacy stone tablet. This was definitely not a situation that would only happen when someone attacked it. It was because the spiritual energy within it had dried up, causing it to gradually break down. If it continued to be passed down, it would be completely destroyed. If they wanted to obtain the legacy, they would have to listen to the clan leader or elders. Although they could still obtain the legacy, it would not be as good as obtaining the content through the legacy stone tablet. Through the content of the legacy stone tablet, they would be able to comprehend it more thoroughly. It was the same martial art, but if it was obtained through inheritance, the cultivation speed would be at least several times faster than if it was taught orally. That's right. Based on the current situation, we can only last for less than 10 inheritances, Sua Kaifeng sighed. This was related to their previous abuse of power. As long as they were talented, they would be allowed to comprehend the inheritance stone tablet. Over time it became like this. By the time they reacted, it was already too late. There were less than 10 chances left. At this time, many of the people behind him who did not support Yi Tianyun to obtain the legacy obediently shut their mouth. Even if there was only one chance, they would not object. The fact that Yi Tianyun could light up 10 stars meant that he could become the king of the heavens in the future. They really wanted someone to lead the Fengtian divine kingdom to glory, but unfortunately, Yi Tianyun would not stay. It was just that he didn't say it now. If he said it, he would only say it to Sua Kaifeng and the others. He wouldn't specifically announce it. Only 10 times? Yi Tianyun smiled and took out the jade pendant and threw it lightly. The jade pendant floated in the air, and quickly turned into a green light and merged with the inheritance stone tablet. Soon, the whole inheritance stone tablet began to repair itself. The crowd was dumbfounded. The inheritance stone tablet that seemed so difficult to repair was now being repaired? What's going on? It's being repaired? Everyone's eyes widened. Be it Sua Kaifeng or Yi Yuanlong, they were all astonished. After a short while, the inheritance stone tablet was completely repaired. It looked no different from a brand new one. The inheritance stone tablet has been repaired. Make good use of it. Don't overdo it. Otherwise, it will revert to its previous state. Yi Tianyun warned. It seemed like the King of the Heavens had predicted that the inheritance stone tablet would collapse. That was why he had left it here. Now that it was repaired, they would be able to train more disciples in the future. Thank you so much for your help. If it weren't for you, this inheritance stone tablet would not have lasted for long. Sua Kaifeng was so emotional that he almost fell to his knees. This had always been a problem in their hearts. Now that it had been repaired, how could they not be excited? Thank you so much, Second Elder. We are very sorry for our rudeness earlier. Please forgive us. One by one, the disciples fell to their knees. Not only had the young man awakened 10 stars, but he had also helped to repair the inheritance stone tablet. Their hearts were filled with admiration. Instantly, their favorability points skyrocketed once again, reaching over 150. With the existence of these people, Yi Tianyun's reputation in the Fengtian kingdom would not be bad. Get up, I won't take such a small matter to heart. Yi Tianyun waved his hand. If the King of the Heavens had pursued this matter, they would have been dead by now. Why would they still be kneeling here? Thank you, Second Elder. They stood up excitedly. They heaved a sigh of relief after receiving the Second Elder's forgiveness. When Yi Yuanlong and the others saw this, they nodded their heads in agreement. They were surprised that such a situation had occurred. They had initially thought that Yi Tianyun would need to do something to establish his prestige after becoming the Second Elder. But from the looks of it now, Yi Tianyun had already established his prestige without needing to do anything at all. It's about time. I'll go in and obtain the inheritance first. There aren't any inheritances up there. Yi Tianyun placed his hand on the inheritance stone tablet. In the next instant, a golden light enveloped him and wrapped him up, disappearing into the inheritance stone tablet. We can enter the inheritance stone tablet as well? They were also shocked. Under normal circumstances, they had never entered the inheritance stone tablet before. They would stick their arms on the inheritance stone tablet and continuously transmit the inheritances into the inheritance stone tablet to cultivate. As for entering the inheritance stone tablet like Tianyun, they had never done it before. They exchanged glances, not knowing what to say. Ever since Tianyun had arrived, he had done some unbelievable things. This was something that had never happened before. While the crowd was discussing outside, Tianyun had just entered the inheritance stone tablet when he heard a deep voice in his ears. Someone has finally come in. At this moment, a benevolent-looking middle-aged man walked out. As soon as he walked out, the empty space around Tianyun immediately turned into a spacious room. At the same time, a tea table appeared in front of him. The middle-aged man walked over with a smile and sat down slowly. He gestured for Tianyun to sit down. Ancestor. Chapter 735. The King of the Heavens motioned for Tianyun to sit down and looked at him with a smile. After a while, the King of the Heavens sighed. Amazing cultivation, reaching the first layer of the Saint King stage at such a young age. How did you do it? If I was the same age as you, I would have reached the Spirit Core stage at most, but you are already at the first layer of the Saint King stage. It's really monstrous. Many powerhouses were not monstrous geniuses when they were young. Most of them had decent cultivation, but they were definitely not outstanding. They could break through to the God King stage mainly because their Tao heart was strong enough. Thank you for your praise, Ancestor. This junior was just lucky. Tianyun smiled slightly and said modestly, luck is also a kind of strength. No one can achieve success easily. If you don't work hard and have the courage to take the first step, you won't be able to achieve such success. The King of the Heavens smiled. Tianyun did rely on his own strength to climb up step by step. It was undeniable that he relied on the system, but if he didn't have the courage, it would be impossible to obtain such strength. It wasn't something that could be achieved by killing people casually. After all, he had experienced many dangerous situations. If it was someone else who obtained the system, if they didn't grasp it well, they would probably die very miserably. Tianyun smiled slightly and didn't say anything. Ancestor, you asked me to come in. I'm afraid you have something to tell me, right? Tianyun roughly guessed what it was. Yes, I left a trace of my divine sense here to tell me what I'm worried about. If you can see me, it means that the war hasn't started yet, otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be able to see me. The King of the Heavens said solemnly. War? Are you talking about the demons? Tianyun narrowed his eyes and said. He thought about it for a while, but there really was no other situation besides the demons. It seems that you have some understanding. Yes, it's the demons. The King of the Heavens narrowed his eyes as he recalled, a long time ago, a large number of demons suddenly appeared. They looked horrifying, but no one knew what race they were. They came with a menacing aura. We didn't even have time to communicate before it devoured our cultivators crazily. No matter how we communicated, it was useless. There was only one word, devour. He waved his hand lightly and a shadow appeared in the air. When Tianyun looked up, his face immediately darkened. Evil spirit race? What appeared in front of him was the appearance of the evil spirit race, with 8 thick arms waving in the air. His face was repulsive, like a glaring vajra. He held 8 weapons tightly in his hands and waved them in the air. Evil spirit race, you know about this thing? The King of the Heavens was surprised. If I take a closer look, there are still some differences. However, this appearance and this ability do resemble the species I dealt with previously, said Tianyun in a deep voice. It's very likely that fiendish demons have secretly taken root in the 3 realms. Although the evil spirit race was a little different from the current image, the difference was not very big. It could only be said that after reproducing, there were all sorts of differences. The quality of a race did not depend on its appearance, but the evil spirit race was indeed terrifyingly savage. As long as they were not of the same race, they would crazily devour them. They've taken root in the three realms, The King of the Heavens' face darkened. At that time, the three of us, the God Kings, crazily searched every corner. We should have searched everywhere, but we couldn't find any traces of them. Only after confirming that they were completely destroyed would we be able to relax. Ancestor, I'm afraid you won't be able to find one thing. Tianyun pointed to his stomach. You mean, they already have descendants with the races here? The King of the Heavens was shocked. That's right, some of them look like humans on the outside, but when they suddenly burst out, it was the power of the evil spirit race. At the same time, it is very likely that they have reproduced with other races. There are still quite a few of them, but not many of them. Etienne's heart sank, and when he thought about it carefully, his back broke out in cold sweat. No wonder the evil spirit race was constantly searching for treasures. It was not because they were greedy for the treasures, but because they wanted to release their ancestors. As long as their ancestors were released, the three realms would return to darkness. I never thought that there would be such a move. We really didn't investigate everyone carefully. There are too many races. Especially the one in the stomach, we didn't expect it. The King of the Heavens shook his head and revealed a bitter smile. I thought that the demons might attack again, but it seems like they have already taken root. I wonder what ancestors' real thoughts are? Etianyun asked. I just want you to obtain all the inheritances, stabilize the many divine inscriptions, and check if the demons will attack. The King of the Heavens shook his head. Who knew that they had already taken root here? I really didn't expect that. However, their forces are not strong. One of them was uprooted by me. I don't know if there are any other evil spirit race. Etianyun thought for a moment, then asked doubtfully. All along, they said that the ancestors had left. Where did you go? We left the three realms to find a way to break through to a stronger cultivation level, or to find a better place to cultivate. The King of the Heavens said in a deep voice, the resources here are completely unable to help us break through further, to the point that we could not even kill one of the demons that attacked us. We could only choose to leave this place and wait outside to break through before coming back to kill it. But it's been a long time, and I haven't seen you guys return. Etianyun frowned. This was already a very long time ago. According to what others said, it had been thousands of years or even tens of thousands of years. I'm not too sure about this. I'm just a trace of divine will. I can have complete memories before I left. As time passes, it will gradually disappear, or the inheritance stone tablet will be destroyed. The King of the Heavens shook his head and said, We don't know what's going on outside. We never went out. We might have died outside. The King of the Heavens smiled. He looked very carefree. As a trace of divine will, the life and death of his main body had nothing to do with him, not even the slightest bit. Outside the three realms, there are other worlds. Etienne's eyes flickered. This was not surprising. If there were no other worlds, there would not be any demons attacking. Of course, when your cultivation is too low, you can't go out at all. You will be blocked by the power outside. Only when you break through to the God King level can you leave this place. The King of the Heavens said in a deep voice. So in the end, we chose to leave this place, find a better place to break through, then come back here to kill demons. Etianyun nodded, suddenly had a new understanding. There are other worlds outside the three realms. Seems like they did not die, they just left this place to find a breakthrough point. Chapter 736. Since you went out, you must have made some preparations, right? Etianyun changed the topic again. The King of the Heavens must have asked him to come in just to talk about this matter. Yes, if we didn't come back and the demonic beasts were about to break the seal, we could only hand over the remaining task of suppressing the demonic beasts to you. The King of the Heavens said in a deep voice. The three realms contain the power of the three of us. As long as you activate this power, you can once again suppress the demonic beasts. In the heavenly realm, it's the star ring star, the divine artifact in the sky, which stores my power. The King of the Heavens said, "As long as you completely erupt, you can erupt a very strong power, at least enough to fight against the demonic beast. Of course, I can't speculate the current situation of the demonic beast. Once you erupt, my divine sense will rush up and fuse with the divine artifact to release the strongest power. At that time, I'm afraid that the star-ring star will be destroyed, right?" Etienne's heart sank. "Yes, if you want to erupt the strongest effect, you have to do this," the King of the Heavens said in a deep voice. Etienne nodded. "Anything that can erupt the strongest power must pay a price. This is like burning the blood essence. The power is very strong, but the price is also not small." "What about the other preparations?" Etienne asked. "The other thing is to ascend the heaven altar. If you can master it well, and if you have an inheritor, talk to him about this matter. The greater the power, the greater the responsibility. If you don't pay the price, when the time comes, it will be over." The King of the Heavens said, "It doesn't matter, I have already become the inheritor of the heaven-creating divine king." Etienne said truthfully. "Sure enough." The King of the Heavens shook his head and sighed. "At first, I thought that the forces of the heaven-creating divine king would soon decline, mainly because he didn't give us as many resources as we do. He let them develop on their own, but in the end they still disappeared. When he found out that Etienne was the inheritor, not only was he not happy, he even felt that it was a pity. Since you have the heaven-ascending divine altar, then it's even easier. Now you control two places. The other place is the power left behind by the ancient underworld god king. It is under the heavenly underworld sacred ground," the King of the Heavens continued. The immortal treasure spirit had explained all of this, but the King of the Heavens did not know. From the start, they had determined that whoever came in would not know about the demons. He had been sealed all this time, so how could he possibly know? "The artifact's spirit told me about it before," Etienne said. "In that case, I also have to find an inheritor, or grasp it myself?" "That's right, that's pretty much it. All three of them are the strongest means, and we can't do without one," the King of the Heavens said sternly. "Only when all three of them explode together, and instantly suppress any corner of the three realms. No matter where the demon escapes, or where it is, we have to draw it out at the same time. We will definitely be able to suppress it and reseal it for 10,000 years. So powerful. Etienne was shocked. It could be sealed for 10,000 years like this. Last time I went to sense it, it was very powerful. When it comes out, it might have reached the peak of the God King level. Even if it didn't reach that level, it would be close. As long as it is still at the God King level, we can suppress it." The King of the Heavens' eyes were cold, and he said with an imposing manner, "When we suppressed it, our cultivation was weaker than it, but we still suppressed it. So before we left, we once again arranged everything. Once the seal is broken, we can immediately use the seal to suppress it again." After hearing this, Etienne was in awe. He did not expect them to make so many preparations before leaving. It was really admirable. If it were some other strong cultivators, they would not care about anything after leaving. No matter how they died, it would not affect them. But they did not do that. Instead, they made many preparations to suppress the demon again. This alone was enough to prove how strong they were. They could not kill it, but suppressing it was not a problem. Sometimes, trapping it was much easier than killing it. "Ancestors, it's been hard on you. Most people don't know what you've done." Etienne shook his head. Many people did not know about this. At most, only a small portion of people knew. Whether we know or not, it has nothing to do with us. This bit of reputation is not that important to us, the King of the Heavens said calmly. Compared to this, we look forward to a new world, to greater power. Otherwise, if a stronger demon barges in, all reputation will be for naught. To put it bluntly, fists were the hard truth. Everything else was bullsh*t. As for the rest, I still have some content to tell you. It's all in the form of memories. The King of the Heavens stretched out his hand and a group of memories flowed into his mind. Tianyun did not resist and absorbed the memories. He generally knew more detailed content, far more detailed than the memories given by the Heavenly Rock Suppression Ancient Tablet. In addition, all the inheritance of the King of the Heavens was given to him. Young man, I'll leave the rest to you. I know the process is very hard, but if you want to live, this is the only way. The King of the Heavens smiled faintly. Perhaps many people will laugh at you or ignore you in the process, but in order to protect your loved ones, what others think has nothing to do with you. Tianyun nodded heavily. They did this to protect their loved ones, not the three realms. The life and death of many cultivators had nothing to do with them. Moreover, the others were even more indifferent. When demons came, they all hid. Such people deserved to die, but in order to protect their loved ones, they could only choose to fight with their lives. I will. Tianyun's eyes flickered. He did not want to simply suppress the demon. He wanted to kill it completely. Only then would he be able to solve the problem in his heart. Very good. You can use these memories to search for more information. Many of them will be of help to you, allowing you to break through faster. The heaven-sealing God King waved his hand and disappeared from the area. Very good. At the same time, Tianyun was ejected from the inheritance tablet and appeared at the outermost area. Many cultivators outside looked at him in shock. It was not that his entry was too shocking, but that he had only been in there for a very short time. The inheritance is finished? Suo Kaifeng said in surprise. Yes, it's about time for me to leave. Tianyun dropped a bomb as soon as he came out. This time, everyone's expression changed. Among them, the elders and disciples all knelt down. Second elder, you must not leave. We know that we have made a lot of mistakes, but we hope that you can forgive us and not leave the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.